Hey guys, welcome to Green Bean Fiction. So in today's video we are gonna see, what if Deku was Emerald Reaper and had Harem, Part 1. Before starting, make sure to hit that like button and subscribe if you are interested in MHA fanfictions. This story is Deku, the Emerald Reaper by Gigan_9835. Now without wasting any more time, let's dive in. Shizuoka_Musutafu City Boom. Screaming. It's the Reaper. He's here. We hear the voice of a scared woman from afar. As in sight we have none other than the prefecture of Shizuoka, more specifically, Musutafu, as we see some ruckus occurring at the small city from the sky, being a large fire that, by the looks of the people around, was provoked by someone. This also being a fact because the flames of said fire was magic green. It didn't take a couple of seconds to get inside a person coming out of the flames unsketched and completely fine, being dressed in black with emerald decors that made it look neither heroic or villainous. But one thing was sure, it wasn't a safe person to be with, as it had in hand a large silver-black scythe that could easily cut through people like butter. The silhouette landed in the pavement of the street in an elegant landing, as it stood again from his spot. Exodius. But he wasn't alone, as he was followed close by more silhouettes that now looked like heroes, one of them being an intimidating red-haired man with a crimson cape and spiky mask that looked in some way manly to many males of the area. He was alongside two other heroes. Who was he? Crimson Riot. Once again we meet Riot. The Reaper-like man said with a polite sentence as it guarded up a bit, as for him was no surprise of seeing the pro once again. This time I'm getting you behind bars, Exodius, and I will not let you escape this time. Riot exclaimed in a determined tone as his partners also stood on guard ready to confront the man in front of them. Size asterisk. When will you ever learn to find peace, Riot? I'm not in the mood right now for a fight and neither you want this fight. The man said calmly as he was starting to turn his sight away of Riot, being sure of his word of not wanting a fight. Also because this was a special day for him. I am peaceful right now, Exodius, and I also want to end this without the nay dance of a battle. Surrender peacefully and we might not come to get ugly in terms of acquaintance. Riot said politely yet with a serious calm tone as he offered to stand peacefully against the man, being a man of honor to not start with the left foot in the field and also not wanting to ensure a violent act such as a confrontation between the two, mainly of who was his opponent to begin with. Exodius. The Grim Reaper. The mighty and unstoppable vigilante that was marked as number one in his field, feared by both villains and heroes thanks to his lethal quirk. Judgment Flames, which were capable of burning down to non-existence the most vile sinners, and to take out of service multiple heroes at once. Over 1,000 casualties by his hands were provoked, most of them villains that were feared and almost as sinful as the mighty All for One. And a quarter part of them, false heroes, which was the main reason of the priority for his capture by the government. Crimson Riot was one of the many heroes in pursuit of him for years ever since his appearance, and maybe the last one at the mentioned task, as many, thanks to the fear of being murdered by the vigilante, quit on trying said task to prevent another casualty. And some by obvious cowardice. I'm afraid to tell you that right now I'm busy with a personal task, Riot, so I would recommend not stopping me if you don't want to get hurt. Exodius started to walk away peacefully after those words, as he was silently in a hurry to get away from the job, as an important event for him was in the process of happening. A birth of his descendant. But like all kinds of things that happens in the job, there are always things that doesn't happen as you want them. You're not going anywhere. One of the partners of Riot exclaimed as it rushed towards the vigilante, taking serious his capture to be done, ignoring the call of Riot to stop his tracks. Size with a quick movement on his sight, Exodius quickly smacked the hero away with the staff of his sight, launching the hero back with his partners as he looked at Riot. You heroes always with your laws. It ticks my mind with frustration for such loyalty of a false cause and order. The hero that was launched back started to stand up as he caressed his cheek in pain, having said expression in his face. In the case of Riot, he was stern even after his partner's flaw, as he knew what kind of guy was Exodius, his other partner a bit intimidated by the action of the vigilante. But it wasn't an excuse to not act against it, as the other hero also rushed towards Exodius, using its capturing quirk in an attempt to restrain the vigilante, yet it was futile, as Exodius only used his scythe as a kind of saw to shred the attack into pieces, dashing in a blur to deal a blow that stunned and launched back the hero, said person having both hands in its belly from the hit it received. Trust me. I'm not in mood to judge you now, Exodius, still not losing his touch of politeness towards the heroes, as he held in guard with his back at them, showing no interest at all in an aggressive confrontation. Sighs asterisk. I do trust you, Exodius. Yet these are the kind of situations that, unfortunately for my job, I cannot ignore. Riot stood on guard, as his gaze was joined with Exodius. As a man of honor, Exodius, I ask you twice to surrender peacefully. Can you, Reaper? As the hero asked at the vigilante with a polite tone, ignoring the clearly confused expression of his partners as they were waiting for the vigilante's answer. Baby cries repeatedly. Forgive me, Riot. Moves hand elegantly, but as honorable as I am, I'll have to take that for another time. Exodius said as he immediately summoned a giant wall of magic green flames with a swipe of his hand, as he barely blocked the incoming move of the heroes, allowing his to escape. But he didn't realize one of them passed on time, thanks to its hardening quirk that allowed him to withstand the heat of the flames. Whispering, "What are you really hiding, Hisashi?" Riot asked himself as he pursued the vigilante silently from behind, following steadily in order to not be caught by the sight of the vigilante. Musudafu's main hospital, screams of pain plus baby cries. The sound of a baby cry was heard through one of the many halls of the large hospital, as the melody of the birth of a new life was present. A young woman of green hair and fair proportions just gave birth to her son. Her time as mother just beginning after a couple of years married with her husband. Inko was panting in pain and exhaustion, as she just gave birth to her now newborn son, having the shades of the droplets from crying from such utter pain of the birth process. All while she was able to hear with joy and happiness the cries of her son calling her for her heat as mother. Congrats, Miss Midoriya, one of the nurses in charge of the birth said as she took her attention. You had given birth to an adorable boy. Ending this as she was past the now newborn baby with a blanket, clean from the liquids that might stayed from going out of its mother's belly. Inko without telling any words stretched her arms towards the baby, the nurse doing the favor to pass the newborn to her arms, as she immediately hugged the little Midoriya like the mother she had just become. Just at that moment, the same man that in green dressings, now this time with more casual clothes, came in barging through the door, alerting the doctors. Inko. The man called out with clear tiredness and panting tone of worry, but as soon as he got sight of her, he was able to see the image of her wife, carrying with her arms a little baby that he immediately deduced was none other than the prior rush for coming to the hospital. His son, now alive and newborn. Sir, you have forbidden to enter here without. Don't worry, miss. He is my husband, Inko reassured to the nurse as she could observe how Hisashi kneeled to be at the same level to the bed, having his hands just centimeters away to touch his son's skin, thing he of course did, caressing the cheek of the newborn with parental care. The nurses didn't want to ruin the moment, so they've stayed quiet on the process of the father to assimilate the birth, as the doctor came in with the prescript papers of birth. Hisashi, even if his cold gaze was present, his eyes were filled with joy, care and love like no other. In front of his eyes was his newborn son, his descendant and the new reason for him to live once more. Welcome to the world, Izuku. From afar, so that's what you have been hiding, Hisashi? Your family? Riot, who was surveilling the building from the top of one nearby, thought with clear surprise, as he now could understand the rush of the vigilante to stay out of service. I've only heard rumors of some of your victims that you were looking like near retirement. I can now see why. A son never has to deal with the sins of the parents. It's immature to think such coincidence to speak of someone who has no recollection of the events or anything. Starts to walk away. Back with the Midoriya family *badump*, as I thought. You did follow me here, Shuriken, Hisashi thought as he was hugging Inko with most of the love he had, as Izuku was taken by the nurses to be covered in a blanket of comfortable fabric. Whispers *. What's wrong, dear? Hisashi heard his wife calling him out, as she seemed a bit worried. Whispers *. Sherrod. He's nearby. When he said that Inko didn't look surprised or in the slightest intrigue, she had a hurted expression on her face. Are you going to continue into this path, Hisashi? I don't want Izuku to lose his father. Yet not everyone would be so kind to accept him if my backstory gets revealed to the world. Inko holds her from her chin. As long as I stay pursued by the law, your lives won't be the best you would have want. Even so, here I am like in the beginning. I love you as who you are, Hisashi, and that won't change no matter what has happened or what you have done. And our son needs his father the most. The two elder Midoriyas' ambience was a bit tense. Inko knew who her husband was and what he was. But like her husband, she knew how cruel the world would be if the identity of Exodius was exposed to the world, more for their son, who was no culprit of what Hisashi did. Are you going to talk with him? Inko asked him with a bit of worry from her tone, as she knew what could happen if the two adults enter in a conversation. Unfortunately I have to, but I assume he might have some mercy on me thanks to what he had seen. It's not so simple to convince a pro-hero Hisashi, especially because I don't want the government to know what are you. And Izuku just born right now, he won't even have a memory of this in later times. I know. But it's a risk I'm willing to take, dear. Just be careful. I will. Hisashi and Inko embraced each other into a gentle but filled with love kiss that endured a couple of minutes, Hisashi going out of the room to make things clear with the pro-hero, as Inko was left worried in the clinic, seeing Izuku beside her now with a heartwarming smile, hugging him closer. Don't worry, my sweet child, your father it's a strong man. Outside the hospital, we see Crimson Riot sitting at the edge of the building's roof, as he was seemingly waiting for someone. Which wasn't long, as a sudden silhouette landed near him, a familiar silhouette. Took you long enough, Hisashi, Riot said with a calm tone, as he stood up from his spot and turned towards the silhouette who was Hisashi, disguised in his vigilante suit as Exodius. So. No formalities now, huh, Sherrod? Hisashi said with a bit of intrigue, as he neared the man, just staying a couple of meters away of him, as Riot had his arms crossed. You've never told me you had a wife, and neither that you would become a parent. Why does these two seem to know each other? Simple. Sherrod Yamamoto, the name's invented by me, there is no name confirmed in the canon by Horikoshi for Crimson Riot. And Hisashi Midoriya, once friends since junior high school and now rivals thanks to their different careers. The two never hated each other, but they knew their paths lead to both confronting each other as enemies. They were almost brothers thanks to Hisashi's orphan life. You have connections with the police thanks to being a pro, Sherrod. I cannot risk giving you such information formally, Hisashi said this with a serious tone, as Riot could only agree mentally with him. If they weren't enemies, it wouldn't be a problem. What's its name? Izuku. Izuku Midoriya, Hisashi responded honestly to the hero, making him have the name in his mind. Yet his next question was a tricky one. Will you tell him about your bloodline once he gains memories? Just when the time comes. I don't want him bragging about something that should not be known openly, mainly because of All for One. Hisashi knew of the villain, and he knew how dangerous would it be if such abominable being gets his claws on his newborn, especially because of a trait him and Izuku have that Riot seemed to know. You hid that secret for decades, and something tells me he will be someone very important. Intrigued. What makes you think of that, Sherrod? Gazes at the sky. I don't know. Just a hunch that he might meet the pro in America that has had been bragged on around the people nowadays. Toshinori, right? He already has his hands busy, Sherrod, mainly because of the death of Shimura-senpai not long ago by that monster. You could have helped at that time, Hisashi. You aren't really a pushover, not for nothing you are the #1 vigilante. I only punish and extinguish villains that deserve it, Sherrod. And it's not my destiny to destroy All for One, my only concern it's him. Right? Didn't Redgrave and his family line kicked his ass centuries ago? He cannot be killed that easily, Sherrod, and if the rest of the heroes and that monster know of such thing willing to come here to the world, it will be a massacre. Both adults had a concerned expression, as what they were seemingly talking about was something serious and worrying. What would you think if your son gets involved in AFO and All Might's rivalry, Hisashi? From the rumors I've heard, it seems something far serious than the Revolutionary Army. I won't interfere if it happens. At that time maybe All Might would be the all-star of the new generation. New generation? Riot asked, intrigued, as he was now confused of what he might referred with that. But the looks of the vigilante's face now gave a shock to what was none other than the pro, as he now got what he meant. I have to prepare my son for the future to come, and for that, the world won't need me anymore. Screen turns off. We locate ourselves inside a room, being filled with multiple things such as All Might's posters, figures, and also things related to Exodius, the former #1 vigilante, as the era of the illegal justice ended years in the past. So that explains things better. A very young voice was heard, apparently of a 3-year-old kid, which looks were similar to Inko. Yet his hair was messy and he had 4 freckles on each cheek, resembling little gems on them, His eyes were emerald and even his face looked innocent. Yet the kid's behavior seemed a bit cold. "So you were a vigilante, huh, Dad? No wonder why you were so secretive with Obasan and Ojasan. And Mom also knew it." This was none other than Izuku Midoriya, now a 3-year-old kid, as he had watched a little video Hisashi let for him once he got into an age he could start getting memories, as well as some other things in company, mainly books full of martial arts, gunsmithing and in clear specifications, sword mastering. A better reason to not make a mistake about us then. Looks at a poster, "Your era has come to an end. But assume this one will be an interesting one then, father." Shizuoka's prefecture Pav Izuku. One night, inside a baby room of Shizuoka's hospital, a bioluminescent glowing baby gave birth into the world, causing a great havoc around the world of its own existence. But this was just the beginning of what was near to come. In the transcurring years, more and more people started to develop more of this powers. Add in what was the blink of an eye, the entire population in the world had one unique power for its own. This opened frontiers to many advances in technology, medicine, economy and most of all, a new profession was born. What was before a legend now became a reality. The heroes started to appear. But this as well incited into a new form of criminals, one that was meant to be the very counterpart of this first one. Villains was now also a reality. Until now, 80% of the entire society developed these powers, which were blessed as quirks, a matter of respect nowadays, the other 20% being disrespected thanks to the lack of this. But there was something that everyone has forgotten ever since this happened. A legend far in the story that only a few remembers, a truth hidden from humanity to not cause panic. Once in the days before Christ, the Son of God, was born, there was a conflict of two different worlds that one shattered the earth. This conflict was started by two different species, humankind and demonkind, humans and demons. The fight was going in advantage towards the demons, its ruler Mundus, the one behind it all. But there was one that was against his goal, a demon that defied his goal. This demon was known as the Dark Knight Sparta, a legendary demon knight that with his power, the evil Mundus got sealed into his world, alongside his lackeys and followers. Over the years after, Sparta breeded two descendants with a human before their decease, descendants that were once known as Tony Redgrave and Nello Angelo, their true names to be Dante and Virgil Sparta, this second siring a descendant by the name of Nero, Knight of the Order of the Sword. It has happened centuries after what occurred in Redgrave City, being the only time the existence of demons was told true to the world, causing a bit of ruckus around the world. But years have passed and people tend to forget about things so easily, more because quirks appeared not long after that. The world has changed more than anyone could have imagined. End Izuku's Pav. Computer screen. Are you serious? He saved 500 people in less than 10 minutes. How is that possible? We see a TV turned on in what it seemed the screen of a computer, being inside a characteristic room. In front of it were two presences. One was a grown woman of silk skin with dark green hair and jade-like eyes. The other one was a kid of the same features, but unlike its mother, he had freckles in both his cheeks. The kid sitting right at the front of the TV with amusement in his face as he was holding an action figure of a bulky blonde man with cape. The kid had a bit of resemblance to one of the figures in some posters, these posters having a text about the last era. The era of the Reaper. This was also with a photo that was at the side of the computer, being a family photo. The kid, younger in age and with a wide toothy smile, his mother, who was younger and also with a warming smile. And the last figure was a man of slim yet bulky features, always wearing a characteristic dressing, not to say white silver hair and emerald eyes. Eyes that seemed to go through someone's soul. Laughs. He's laughing. I can't believe he's laughing. In a moment like this, what the heck? A powerful laugh was heard alongside the cameraman and some citizens asking confused of the behavior of who seems to be the savior of the moment. As the kid seemed to become more amused the more the figure started to appear. The same bulky man he was holding in his hand as action figure. Everything it's all right. You know why? The bulky man asked to the top of his lungs with a wide smile, being also the main question of the present as well in the video. The kid started to crack a smile of amusement, while his mother didn't seem very fazed by it, other than having a curiosity on him. Note. No Inko x Toshinori story. Inko it's a loyal wife to Hisashi in this story and Hisashi didn't abandon them until later explanations on the episode. Because I am here. The moment the man said that, the kid seemed excited, as he increased a bit the grip on the figure in his hand as his eyes were glued to the screen. The woman on the contrary could only sigh with surrender. She seemed to had known the guy well enough to tell how he was doing his work. Computer screen turns off. He's cool. At least not as much as Papa is. The kid exclaimed as he held to the top the figure in his hand, this making the woman chuckle a bit. Well, gotta admit that, All Might is one-of-a-kind hero, but enough of that. How about we have dinner before tomorrow, dear? Yeah. The kid was none other than Izuku Midoriya, son of Hisashi Midoriya and Inko Midoriya, now 4 years old and like most of the kids at his age, a kid to be much of a nerd in terms of heroes. But what was about to happen tomorrow was actually the worry of Inko, as she knew that Izuku, her son, thanks to her husband's genes will get a power to be very similar to his, as he already developed the natural strength her husband had without any need of the power. Something unique on them. The next day, give up kid. A man, with dressings to be confirmed to be a doctor said coldly as the kid, although shocked, didn't seem fazed much, as he only let go of the figure he had in hand, taking it with him as a lucky charm. His expression of being unfazed also being in Inko's expression, although she acted shocked. May you explain why, doctor? She asked as she wanted to know the variable, as she was inspecting more the attitude of the doctor instead of what she asked to be confirmed, although Izuku was curious. Miss Midoriya, you're a 4th-gen quirk user, right? The doctor asked the question, as Inko only explained it, using it to pick up the figure on the ground to deliver it to her son was again, who took it. Yeah, my quirk allows me to attract small things to me as you have seen. And my husband it's capable of manipulating fire like pyrokinesis, but in larger and stronger scale than Endeavor, although he isn't a brawler type to be into something like hero work. Inko lied in the description of her husband, as the info of Hisashi was something very delicate to say. Hisashi Midoriya, aka Exodius, the Reaper, retired from vigilantism once Izuku reached his 3rd year, starting to work as a personal guard of a rich family that offered him work with one very well-played lie, her running a cafe by the name of Devil's Cove, courtesy of a friend of her husband in his early years before coming to Japan. He changed the name of his quirk as pyrokinesis in order to not cause trouble thanks to Riot's secret aid from the government. She didn't want to make much ruckus. Well, to put it simple, the doctor then picked a X-ray he had of one of the foot of Izuku, showing it to her as he pointed out the pinky toe. Studies reported that the variation of quirks started to develop through an evolutionary change on the joints of pinky toes in the human body, being discarded as unnecessary for the quirks. As you can see here, your son possesses 2 joints, which could only be related that your son unfortunately born quirkless, the doctor explained with such simplicity that it seemed that he didn't even cared of the reaction from them, this displeasing the woman internally as she could only have disgust in her tongue. That man was only seeing this as business, without emotion at all. Izuku on the contrary was a bit saddened. He didn't develop an unique ability like his mother or his friend, yet he wasn't really bothered by it. What happens to someone cannot be changed, so he only shrugged it off. I understand, doctor. Have a nice day, Inko said with respect as she hid her disgust towards the doctor, taking Izuku with her as the 2 Midoriyas left the room. But at that moment, the doctor then looked at the studies with a malicious grin, one that didn't seem normal. I found the Reaper. Later that day Park of Musudafu. Ha, quirkless. A young boy of ashy blonde hair exclaimed with surprise as he was with our green-haired kid, not far from there being his mother and the mother of this kid, being basically the same but just the difference of gender, as the woman also seemed surprised. Yeah, Kachan. It seems that I won't be a hero as we always wanted, Izuku said a bit disheartened when he explained what the doctor said. Bullshit, Deku. The blonde exclaimed, not convinced at all. I know you have something more than just overall strength. Maybe even Uncle's quirk, but counting at how powerful he is it might appear later. You sure? You've been praised this entire time since you've got yours. Nah, those losers can think whatever they want. We're friends and that's all that matters now. The blonde, identified as Kachan, said, reassuring our kid, as he had a cocky smile, and if they dare to lay a finger on you then they're dead. Chuckles. I think we can agree on that. With Inko. TCH. I hate when the doctors are that cold. Why didn't you argue back then? The blonde woman said, irritated as she could not like the behavior the doctor possessed on the subject. It was unprofessional. A bit nervous, relaxed Mitsuki. It was just a simple visit, besides I won't be seeing that doctor again. Inko replied, a bit alarmed of her childhood friend's behavior, as she knew that the now confirmed to be Mitsuki was a very strong-headed woman. HMPH. At least that settles some matters, but I simply don't care really. Katsuki and Izukun seems to conserve their friendship even after all the bullcrap praises they gave him until now. Mitsuki made the comment as she could watch how her son was playing with Izuku. Inko seeing this with relief, as this meant his son wouldn't have it so hard. She knew the kind of disrespect the Quirkless had. Yeah, both women started then to have a trivial chat, as from behind a tree we could see a familiar man of white hair that was observing everything, this man being Hisashi, Izuku's father and Inko's husband. At least that answers my first question, Hisashi thought, as behind him in another part of the park we see a little girl of onyx hair, playing at the area with a purple-haired girl and a ginger-haired girl, the three having a nice time of playtime. As he also inspected his son, he wanted both his family and the girl he was taking care of as a butler to be safe and have a good childhood. Sighs, choosing to be a butler might not be my best choice, but now that I know what's with my son I can finally start what I was really planning to, train him to be strong, or else his power will consume him. Hisashi thought as he later detected a look from her wife, signaling an acknowledge of the situation as he answered equally, going near the onyx-haired girl as he saw the timer of his clock to mark 0, sign that he would have to unfortunately end the day out of the little girl. Something tells me that they will meet in the future, yet I can't confirm until everything starts. Tsubasa might be after Izuku, so we have to end our lives here unfortunately. Gazes at the Bakugo family, sorry Izuku, but it's best if you say goodbye sooner or later to Katsuki, cause all for one won't be far from getting us thanks to this. Izuku's paw. And so it did. Boom. Asterisk. 2 days later, my father told me and my mother that we would be moving out of home for safety measures. I couldn't say goodbye to Kachan that day, because that night when we already left home, a villain raid assaulted the property. By my father's words, All for One and the doctor that checked me were in the same team, and we've barely escaped their grasp. Our blood was unique. My mom was human, like the rest of the population, but Dad and me were different. Bergdant, once a powerful general and closest friend of Sparta, like this second mentioned, Bergdant also explored the human world and made it a human, the result being my father Hisashi, or his real name Veldora, who born right when the quirks made their first appearance. Thanks to a magic bestowed on him by his father, my dad escaped the quirk war that occurred in those dark days when the mighty Yarikumo Shigaraki aka All for One started his rule of chaos. He observed how many tried to battle him but all to avail failed in the attempt, his mind growing unlike his body until the beginning of Nana Shimura, a powerful heroine appeared, meeting Uncle Sherrod in the process as him and his parents made him his family, thanks to Bergdant's return to the Netherworld on behalf of Mundus Order. All for One unfortunately was one of the few people who knew of the existence of Sparta's kin, Bergdant not being a difference thanks to his Circani, so for years my dad escaped from the villain's grasp, knowing it wasn't his destiny to battle him after seeing many fall under him. When my parents married, the marriage was done politically in order to hide the details for the villain of his location, being the safest it could be, but because of my exposition with Tsubasa, my doctor and seemingly a minion of the criminal, All for One didn't take much to find our home. We moved to Hosu, where the cafe of my mother was put, taking advantage that the job of my mother was hidden of the government's eye as a bar-restaurant known public as Green Valley, which was ran by her thanks to the income Hisashi obtained with the Yaoyorozu's family in which he was hired as butler. The place was protected of any suspects, as my mother uses the name Maria Green Valley on her work, always being secretive of her real identity, which helped us to hide. My classes changed. Of course as a quirkless, many kids saw me as a face of the clown, the laugh of the day, or even a living trash being with them. I didn't care mostly. It wasn't my style to get myself in matters. Once I reached my 6 years, my power spawned. Like my father, I possessed powerful magic green flames that formed in my hands and eyebrows as horns. What was interesting in it was that I was able to use my flames for both burns and ice generation, something even my dad saw interesting. Thanks to him I've trained in the following 5 years my powers. I've learned to absorb fire from the area and use it to charge my power or even regain energy and stamina in the first year. The second year I've learned how to summon both abilities without problems, my father being strict to me to be able to hide it perfectly but also deal a deadly blow when needed, which I didn't yet, but I really appreciated. The third year I've learned that I was able to summon weapons out of the flames of Maid, being the very first one a dagger I've called afterwards, Yondu, followed by a couple of shields I've copied from a manga of USA known as Avengers, a Captain America guy, which I preferred to use for brawling or defense, because of being basically similar I've called them, Aegis Duo. Not before my father giving me a hell of physical training to increase my resilience and my strength, as well as my toughness and energy. The fourth year was far different than I've expected. Both my mom and dad taught me not fighting or physical skills, cooking, ironing, smithing and more things that are basically out of the battle skills. At first I was confused mainly, but I've perfected their teachings to the fullest, mainly smithing, as my dad taught me and allowed me to smith out 3 weapons I carry with my life. A couple of pistols of named Wyvern, a heavy bullet pistol, and the other based from Tony Redgrave's Dante favorite duo, Ivory. Wyvern dealt with heavy bullets that dealt devastating damage to some unfortunate dummies my father had with him, and Ivory was lighter, yet it was faster and more precise than Wyvern, allowing to shot so many bullets that one day I flooded the dummies with bullets. Mom punished me a bit from doing so much of an overkill, as she called it. And the other weapon that I forged was a powerful shotgun I've called Chrono, a devastating shotgun that could easily disfigure the enemy with just one shot. My father never told me why would I need them, especially because they were forged with my powers and also with Gilgamesh, but I can only relate this with something I might wish never happens. I hope. The remaining months of the year were to teach me how to aim this for killing, although he made me remark me that I would only lift this weapons when my intention is killing and not on humans. That scared me. Maybe I won't be so lucky in the future. The 5th year was the kind of worst. Martial arts and sword mastering, it was hell and pretty damaging to me. Karate, judo, capoeira, taijutsu, boxing and even breakdancing for some very weird reason. I actually discovered that I can regenerate with my power, but if fire didn't really burn me or the ice didn't felt cold, man. I feel my body on fire when I heal every time, from the slightest scratch to the deepest wound of blade. That's my limit so far. My father's scythe, Aussie, was a very powerful devil arm that he possessed, and his devil arm by blood thanks to his role as Reaper, title some demons have if they do the good, which I find very rare counting that Dante also did towards humankind and punished the sinners. I have read and heard of it in my previous researches on the media that followers of my father and legal descriptions of the government made to it. A large, deadly scythe capable of changing sizes and cutting through even the deadliest and toughest villains. Not gonna lie, I would actually like such weapon and possess it, but Dad always said that until I grow stronger I could actually at least wield it. But another weapon he told me about was my Gramps, but that would be for another story. Thanks to the help I gave to my mom in the cafe restaurant, the place became one of the most acclamated restaurants in Hosu, even being visited by other pro heroes I've heard around like Manuel and Ingenium himself in civilian clothes with his family. Devil's Cove, the one private of my dad and in the back place, bar restaurant, wasn't really open for everyone. Apart that it is a smithing place and for garage repairs such as vehicles and stuff, I also helped him. I think I saw him having a good chat in the bar with the hero killer himself, which turned out to be a fan of my dad as a pursuer of justice, even if his methods weren't really heroic. My life until my 13 was full of many things, both good and bad. But it was just the day of my 13th birthday, when everything changed for the bad and my life turned to a complete turn of events. Outskirts of Hosu night time. Come on son, hurry. Coming. It was the day of my birthday. My parents wanted to take me on a camping trip as a result of this, as thanks to my training, we could easily explore the forest while Mom followed us nearby with the strength she could. We were in the middle of the forest, the grass and the sound of the leaves being pushed by the wind was a sensation that gave me a bit of chills, especially during dusk. Animals were common to make sounds, so I've got no surprise when I've heard some making noises of their own. But once the light of the night reached the land, my father, who was taking care of the wood fire, stopped abruptly. Same I did. We felt something unusual and clearly not natural to the place. Izuku, take care of your mother and stay behind, Dad ordered me with a stern tone that made me and Mom scared. He wasn't pleased at all of what was going to happen. All as I saw him starting to take Aussie in hand and unyield it in its short form. This wasn't good. My body froze when I saw what was happening. Demons, lots of real demons swarmed and surrounded us into a death circle. My dad didn't waste time and entered in guard as he used his scythe as an intimidating source. To say they were ugly as F and $hash was a truth. Heck, they are horrendous. But one of them seemed to catch both mine and my father's attention. This blood felt familiar, yet the demon itself wasn't really a good one. I could say its power was higher than any of the others, and it was fully made of Gilgamesh to add the worst part. One of the lizard-like tried to ambush both me and Mom, but Dad immediately shot out a flame eagle that disintegrated it completely, as well as he used his scythe as saw to attack and kill most of the ones trying to assault him. Yet that knight wasn't moving, its eyes were pointing at someone else. Me. Watch out, Izuku. I heard my dad call for me in warning as I immediately took out Ivory and Wyvern and I joined the fight, shooting some of the demons to death, but that knight seemed unaffected mostly by the bullets, so much me and Mom got scared and tried to run, but this was a mistake. The immediate moment I started to run, the Gilgamesh knight boosted in incredible speeds I have never seen before in comparison to All Might. It tried to impale me with one of the rocket gauntlets he had in its hands, but Dad used a dagger to block most of the impact, piercing my belly as I was pushed to a little risk nearby, not before crashing into like 13 trees. I was gagging out blood and almost unconscious as I could hear Mom's scream and what I could tell my dad's efforts to stop the assault. A couple of stones covered me before blacking out for the lack of blood. That was the last moment I could enjoy with my parents. The light of the moon was on its peak. Rumble, I was able to come out of the crumbles after I woke up, a giant hole in my clothes. My mind ticked when I remembered what happened, so I tried to hurry and climbed up the little fissure where I was. At first I could see the destroyed trees that I've obliterated with my crash, following them as my sign to locate my parent. Mom, Dad, I exclaimed a bit out of breath as I continued to follow the trail of the broken trees, but a new sensation came to my nose, which made me gag a bit in disgust. Blood. After meters of walking through the forest, I was able to see what had happened, my face entering in great shock and almost a sensation to puke out my meal. Limbs, heads and many more things of demons was in sight. Well, what was remaining, as Dad told me that demons disintegrate when dying, but the smell, gosh, was horrible. As I've crossed the carnage, I could also sense something else that was making me more dreadful, my dad's presence, getting weaker and weaker to critical state. My feet didn't fail me and I rushed to the origin of his pulse, not caring of the many guts or bones of demons around me. The moment I've reached that point, my heart sank. There was my dad, impaled in one of the trees, edges as he was losing more energy the more he breathed, my mother not far in a puddle of blood, having a giant hole through her chest as her eyes were lifeless. My mother died, and my father was not far behind, nearing him as my eyes started to break in tears. This cannot be happening to me. Coughing blood, Izuku, my dad called me, as I was now in front of him, having tears in my eyes. Too, am glad you're safe, my boy, caressing my face, always a tough kid since birth. Tearing up, Otosan, I hoped for this to be a nightmare. I've abandoned Kachan and Auntie, and I was losing my parents right in front of my eyes. Coughing, no need to cry, my son coughs, my fate was coughs coming to *** and end sooner or later. Otosan, I could not gesture more words than that as I was breaking apart. Why did this have to happen to me? Weak chuckles, you have to be strong now, son. This confirmed my greatest fear, and I didn't want to leave you alone against this. Mundus has awoken after centuries, and it might be sooner or later that he might be coming to this world. Handles Aussie. This is now yours, my son. Find Sparta's offsprings, get stronger, reach the best of our demon heirloom and be the very best this world needs. Promise me, Izuku, promise me you will do it. I could only nod as my eyes were glued to his, taking Aussie with one of my hands as I neared it to my chest, my father giving me a smile that will forever be scarred in my memories, his last smile. Weak, rise Uruzen, and protect this world from the evils of it, rise, my son. That was his last breath before closing his eyes for good. I could only cry and howl in pain. I've lost my family, what was left of them came to an end. I was now an orphan. No, I cannot have this thoughts. My dad gave me a goal, and I won't disappoint him. I promise father, Mundus it's going to pay for this. That was my last thought, as I stood from my spot, my silhouette being at the sight of the moonlight as his words carved into my mind. I've lost my family, but I won't let others suffer this. I will become a hero, a devil hunter and the savior this world needs, even if it takes my last breath to do so. I'll be known as Uruzen, the devil hunter. End Izuku's paw. Cracks. Asterisk. A portrait fell from a drawer inside a house in Musudafu, as immediately a certain blonde woman lifted it up, the woman noticing something dreadful on it. Inko, Hisashi, Izuku, her heart enter in pain as some tears trailed her face. The portrait had the crack to cross through Inko and Hisashi, yet Izuku was left intact. That was far of a premonition for her. Tearing up, Inko. If nothing ever happened we would be. The blondie could cry as she understood the message. The Midoriya family was gone, her best friend as well, and lastly her little favorite nephew. Life couldn't be so tragic and cruel than this. Her son was no different. Ever since Izuku left, Katsuki was angry at himself to not be able to protect Izuku, promising himself to once he becomes a hero, to find his long-lost friend, having a hunch that he wasn't dead as the accident happened. The world was changing, and maybe fate would connect them once more, even if he wasn't aware of it. Humans cry, families cry, and demons can cry. Izuku's road towards his goal began. End Episode 1. Author's note. WATASHIGA Kita. Cricket sounds no, nothing. Okay, cut that. Hello readers. As you have read from the story so far, this is a Devil May Cry crossover with Bina. I have not seen many of these type, and many connect Dante and his crew with this time, so, why not give it a personal touch? This happened more than 200 years after the events of Devil May Cry 5, so basically only Trish and Nero out of all the crew in the human world are still alive thanks to their demon breed, this second mentioned having now descendants of only 2 offsprings that had not copulated yet. Dante and Virgil are still alive, yet in the netherworld and their status is unknown, so, time to make a bit of new tactics. In this story Izuku won't be a complete overpowered guy towards demons, yet thanks to his demon breed, he is basically as strong as All Might weakened, yet his power will grow eventually thanks to his devil trigger yet to awake. As you have read, he is neither cousin or nephew of Dante, Virgil and Nero. It's a demon of my own, as well as Hisashi's name being Veldora. Bergdant, a powerful demon general as Sparta, yet did not betray his leader until it fell by the grasp of Sparta and Dante. Izuku, as like any Japanese person will have a very strict discipline, being cold and mostly stoic to much things, heroes as well as villains. As a devil hunter he will be ruthless and merciless towards, having his father's scythe as main weapon and another one that will be shown in later episodes. Will Izuku develop a Sin Devil trigger? That would take time. Right now I had it difficult to do, as Nero will already have his, and of course Dante and Virgil as the game. His devil arms are the ones I've shown in the episode and some others, and you saw Gilgamesh right. I give their special thanks to the original creators, as I will have some of the demon generals to be some of Dante's devil arms, as well as the return to some old bosses of the games through the series. With nothing more to say, this is all, and remember. Your wish it's my command. Musudafu City, Izuku's paw. 3 years have happened since the death of my parents, 3 years that were solely into my goal to stop the darkness Mundus in his tracks. In all these years I was able to see that indeed what my father told me was true. Demons returned, and they tend to attack the unfortunate that are roaming around the lonely streets like ravenous wolves desperate for food. Thanks to the training my father gave me, I have been able to wipe out a plentiful of them in all these years. I'm going to be honest, those motherfuckers are pretty difficult to kill, mainly those with pretty hard armors like the Assaults or the Scudo Angelos, but pretty much I was able to wipe them out without making much of the commotion around the city. Well, sometimes. As expected of pro heroes and burglars, there are plenty around the areas like this one, making it pretty difficult for me to attack the demons without making some curious movement that could catch their attention. one of these pro-heroes that has been pursuing me relentlessly as a man that by my media I know that tends to evade the media commonly. I think he is called Eraserhead, but in truth I cannot blame him, he's an underground hero, so stealth it's his speciality. Around these times I was able to also catch something pretty interesting. In one of my missions to wipe out some demons, I found myself in an alleyway that was only lighted with the light of the moon. What I saw was clearly not the worst thing I have seen, yet it was disturbing enough for someone weak emotionally to puke some guts or even be disgusted and scarred for life. I saw a girl, yeah, a girl, but this girl was actually cutting a poor bastard that maybe tried to attack her, doing this with such passion that I could say it was an ecstasy for her to do so. Not gonna lie, she is kind of pretty and all, but just the way she handles the knives, it's pretty accurate and deadly. A delightful yet deadly red rose that bloomed into the darkest pits of the city. Thanks to the training I made with Dad, I learned to sneak up behind living beings in this way. But it seems my training still lacks of efficiency, as when I was now a couple of meters near her, a large knife went in high speeds towards my face, which I barely dodged thanks to my elevated senses. But of course this was a distraction, as she jumped straight to me with knives in hands, trying to pierce my chest and neck ferociously in aims to drain my fresh blood to stain both her slender and seductive body and cat-like face and the walls with a melody of death and blood. In a little battle of strength I was able to restrain her and pin her to the cold floor of the alleyway, just grazed my skin with a couple of her knives, one actually piercing my shoulder, but thanks to the many times I was pierced by demons this was something common. Giggles. So you're a difficult one, huh? The girl asked me with a grin of entertainment, as she had a deep blush on her cheeks, as she was looking at me with said expression. Before you say something, first, I'm not a hero, second, why are you doing this? I was honest, I wanted to take those doubts out of me, as such beauty can't be doing this just for fun, which it's at least 50% true. Ah, you worried about me, isn't it handsome? I love blood, I completely adore blood and I could not wish more to be drowned in it. She answered me with a toothy grin and such happiness that indeed gave me some goosebumps. This girl really had an obsession with blood that it could easily be described as psychosis. But my worries came true as I sensed demonic energy nearby, as I thought, they've sensed me nearby. What's wrong? The girl saw my alert and she also got out of her grin, as she seems to also detected the change in the ambience, but I didn't listen, as I could hear their crawls surrounding the walls around us. They were clearly attracted by her carnage. Rustle. Our attention was taken when sudden movement was heard where she left the poor guy's body bleeding. Huh, my guess was correct, one of the bloody suckers came to drink the elixir of human blood I see. What is that? She asked a bit scared. Understandable, not every day you see a real living demon in front of you. And behind us wasn't quiet as well. I've turned my head to the back to see a couple more of these bloodsuckers alongside a couple of ugly sick bastards came. They were really coming for the blood. If you want to live, don't get in their way, I told her as I prepare a seat to the action, wielding it into its one-handed version as they've understood I was going to fight back. Roars. The hell Antinora, not being neither lazy or slow, rushed at us with clear intention to kill us, lifting its blades to slash us. The girl immediately answered back with throwing a couple of knives in very weak points of it. It did pierce, but of course that wouldn't kill it, so I instead pinned the girl to the ground as I use a C to slice the fucker in two. But my strike provoked the war. Screeching. The impulses came to the assault as I used a C with such beauty that I was easily disposing out the bastards into pieces as their blood stained the walls and floor. I could see the girl watching me as I killed these suckers, one of them actually kicking it away like it was something so simple, which of course was, but I'm not into being a prideful ass like someone else. After the little carnage of impulses and hell Antinoras, I later saw the girl looking at me, no longer psychotic, but instead with amusement as I packed a C once again in my clothes, which I had to pick up carefully in order to not be very noticeable in the night. What were those? I shut her mouth with one of my fingers as I neared her face, her being a bit flustered of my cercany. Just to thank you, it's enough, young lady. I took out a little card I designed for the Devil's Cove, giving it to her. If you want answers, reach me here or forget this ever happened, okay? I said to her as I later left the place in a blur, leaving her behind with a face full of confusion, but I can tell I caught her interest. Well, everything just happened. Note: This is the Devil's Cove for those who ask, and also the uniform Izuku uses as bartender. Thanks for your attention and enjoy. Not long after that, to be precise a couple of weeks later, when I was just cleaning a bit the Devil's Cove as usual, I received a customer, which seemed to be her, now dressed in a more casual clothing, as she still had her cat-like grin of happiness as I could describe. It seems you followed my advice, M. Toga Hamiko, she answered before I could end my sentence, as she neared the bar where I was located. So, you're the owner of this place, or your boss? It's hidden in here? She asked with clear intrigue as she inspected a bit the bar, seeing it to be pretty elegant for a youngster of my age to run. I'm my own boss and the same gentleman that saved you from those suckers that night, I say as I prepare a little gentle brebrage for my customer, as she took seat. After a bit of explanation, she seemed actually a bit surprised to know that demons does exist, but she also seemed a bit curious to ask me something. So, this makes you a demon hunter? She asked as I literally flinched. She guessed completely what I was in just that guess. Grins, I'm right, am I? Clever girl, I say with no possible counter to that, as she giggled from it, but now that you know this you have to make sure this intel it's private, demons aren't things to be treated gently. Pouts, I know, she exclaimed as she then pinned me to the ground by being on top of me in a very promising position, her having a grin of entertainment as I could only look at her a bit surprised. May I join you? This looks to be fun. Blinks twice. You know this isn't just a typical hunt in the night for blood as you did when we met, right? I know she is crazy, but asking me to join, that's pretty surprising. Grinning plus holding knife, I know. But I would really doubt you would want me to spread this to every villain that I could cross paths with after this, right? God, girls can be sexy but at the same time such tricky bitches. She just threatened me with such a perfect technique that could easily fool many, but I don't think this position it's adequate as I can feel much of her youthful bellow on my waist. Sighs, are you sure you want this? Getting with me means you will also help in here, and I don't think you. Doesn't matter really. As long as I get to be in action it's fine by me. She interrupted me as she nuzzled her body on me while having her golden-eyed stare to be shared with my emerald eyes. Is she doing this on purpose or just to tease me? Well, things just came to an accord and I ended up letting her join me as my helper huntress. In truth I would never thought this would happen, but then she opened up to me and revealed her past to me. Her parents never liked her because of her quirk, transform, based that it depends on how much blood she consumes from someone to change into that person. In first gazes that quirk it's not very pleasant to hear. If blood it's a requirement, but as stealth purposes and more it's perfect for me. I had to train her into the art of killing demons with what my dad taught me. Damn, she learned quickly in just months, enough for me to forge her weapons she appreciated. Saros Swarm, a group of 8 knives made of demonic metal that she could use to really kill them. Although I told her to restrain her sadistic intentions with only demons, cause blood from people can easily be taken with some gear of needles. In the time we spent together I had the honor to learn more about her and her about me, as we became very united between one the other, her being my deadly assistant, Golden Fallen. We were basically the hunters of the demons in both Musudafu and Hosu as we kept cleansing the demon's existence, but of course, our luck would end sooner or later. End Izuku's paw. Actual time, Musudafu City _ Police Station. We locate ourselves at the morning inside an office, as said office belongs to the police that runs Musudafu, as inside was a reunion of many police chiefs and officers, one of them actually being a detective that was surveilling the talk as he was taking notes of it. Police Chief 1 inch for the reports of Musudafu, there has been only a decrease of 0.5% of crime around the city, as there has been appearances of new rookies around here, sir. One making much of the commotion around the Muscalan region. Police Officer 1 inch MT. Lady right, it seems that Midnight has caught her self-competence in the line of beauty this time. Police Officer 2 inches. Don't get fooled though. Those two aren't the only females heroes around that are beauties in battle. Police Chief 1 inch. But discounting that, there has been reports that the #1 hero it's around here in Musudafu. Police Officer 1 and 2, shocked plus surprised. What? All mites here in Musudafu. Police Officer 3 inches. Don't get rushed, things might, it's just rumors. The officers were having a little talk between themselves as it seemed trivial, not really ignoring the real task in hand. Police Chief 2 inches. But have you heard of the new couple of vigilantes around? But one of them touched a title that intrigued the majority of the present. They say that it's a couple of youngsters around their 15s that have been causing ruckus in the area. Many have turned to call them the Jewel Duo, thanks to their eye colors. I think the female's called Golden Fallen if I remember from one burglar captured by them. Police Chief 1 intrigued. Golden Fallen. Interesting name for such young girl. Police Chief 2 inches right. But the other one seems to be the one in charge and the criminals they've taken have been only pronounced with the name of EHH. I think it was Uruzen. Police Officer 3 inches. Uruzen. Chuckles. That sounds a bit too high of himself, isn't he? Police Officer 2 inches. That's what many think, including me, but in truth many wanderers have said that the boy it's pretty well educated and a gentleman, while the girl can be a little bit creepy on her acts but a cutie as many could call them. Police Officer 1 inch. Are you sure you're not inventing things, mate? Vigilantes aren't things to play with. Police Officer 3 inches. Well, that's what I've heard mostly, but there has been reports of Eraserhead of the weapon the boy uses. Police Chief 1 curious. What's with it? Police Officer 3 inches. See it for yourself then. The officer handed down some photos taken from the distance by a hidden camera, as the officers and chiefs inspected them carefully, but one of them actually got a bit frightened by it that he even gulped air. Police Officer 2 trembling. I sent that. Police Officer 1 a bit scared. No doubt about it, mate. Police Chief 2 inches. The Reaper's scythe. The cold mention of it gave chills to many of the present, as the detective and one of the chiefs became curious of what he said. Police Officer 1 inch. How? There hasn't been any reports of the Reaper ever since All Might rose to the podium. Police Chief 1 inch. In that you are right. The Reaper has not been seen for over 13 years in action, and it's by obvious means that he had unknowingly rejuvenated into his youngster years, as there has not been reports of a quirk capable of that feat. Police Officer 2 inches. So you think it might be his successor? This scared the most, as the idea of it seemed a bit too scary for the officers. Police Chief 2 inches. I'm not quite sure yet, but I can assure that whoever that is, he must be captured at all costs. Question mark, question mark, question mark. Detective. Even if he hadn't murdered someone. Their attention was taken as the detective made himself present. Police Chief 1 inch. Detective, are you hearing yourself? Question mark, question mark, question mark. Detective. I am, and by what I have investigated from the two of them it's that none of the two has caused a murder in these 3 years they have been present, other than the unpermitted use of violence without authorization of the law. Police Officer 2 inches. But sir. Question mark, question mark, question mark. Detective. I have read the docs and in none there has been reports of usage of quirks illegally from the two, mainly because there has not been sighting of what they can do. I agree that they must be stopped, but without much proofs and witnesses we cannot simply throw them to jail. Police Chief 1 inch. You're being a bit too passive, detective. Vigilantes must be stopped and it's the laws we have to follow. Question mark, question mark, question mark. Detective. Then if you manage to capture them, lend them to interview me first. I don't want to throw a couple of kids to such territory of evildoers so lightly. Chief 3 inches. In that I agree, my friend. The third chief spoke at last as he stood from his sit, looking at the detective with a stoic glance. Maybe they are vigilantes, but with such little infractions on the law we cannot simply put them in jail alongside other criminals we have caught. First we will interrogate them and from there the vote goes to the law. All right. The chiefs and reluctantly the officers nodded to the request. Chief 3 inches. Dismiss. You're permitted to leave, as he ended the discussion with the chiefs and officers, all the others leaving the office as the detective stayed with the chief. Whispers. I know your relationship with All Might. Get in contact with him and tell him about the kids. He might be able to let them into a rightful path for such promising duo. Question mark, question mark, question mark. Detective. Understood, Chief. I will make sure it doesn't get to violence if possible. Uruzen and Golden Fallen might be able to help us with the answer of the sightings of weird creatures and the destroyed corpses around Musudafu recently, as I've heard from some interrogations that they are some kind of hunters of these creatures. Chief 3 inches. Perfect. Contact me when you get positive results. Question mark, question mark, question mark. Detective. Understood, Chief. Achoo. We heard a sneeze coming, a young voice, as we see a certain couple in civilian clothes that was just walking around Musudafu to get crops. Giggles. It seems once again they are talking about us, Izukun. Toga said with a smile as our teen was only cleaning his nose from the sneeze. Yeah, and I would appreciate if they wouldn't so commonly, or else our customers in the Devil's Cove might think I'm sick, Izuku said as Toga only retorted on, chuckling a bit from his antics, as the girl was hopping beside him closely. The two of them have been kind of busy in the Devil's Cove Smith part, as both of them have been pretty active from the many movements of demons across Musudafu and Hosu, having it hard to take a rest in the night, the day being this time mostly. But for Izuku it's worst. Toga recently have been too clingy to him, and of course the sexual teases has been pretty common, as even the girl showed herself in underwear more than a couple of times in seductive poses, as our teen had to restrain himself from getting turned on by his seductive partner. There was actually once that she got on top of him naked and with clear intentions of sexual intercourse, but he had to restrain her, which she had to reluctantly follow. He knew she was a bit desperate for action thanks to how much of a handsome guy he was, as she said, but they were being professional and those acts would had to be denied, as long as Toga doesn't go overboard to rape him. But undermost to that, they have developed quite a relationship of brother-sister between the two, as he had to be the mature one to get her under control of many things, her acting like a younger sister he would have liked to have, having sometimes the time to spend in go-outs to the game stations or for her nay dance of clothes, her not wasting time to show hers to him bluntly in underwear or as prank lingeries. Izuku has been clearly matured, as running the Devil's Cove and the Green Valley Parle from his mother it's a tough work, him surrendering school to do so. But right now the duo was actually a bit alert, as they've heard the rumors recently. All Might was back in Japan, and the presence of the #1 hero in the city meant that they needed to be pretty careful, counting that it was already difficult to escape Eraserhead and Midnight. Whispers, "You're worried about him, aren't you?" Izuku heard from his partner, as Toga also seemed a bit serious, holding his hand, as he could tell she was as worried as he was. "Not about him mainly, I'm more worried about the presence of demons to get more constant these days," Izuku answered her as he tightened his grip on her hand, as Toga appreciated the tact and clinged a bit to him, but not with intentions of teasing. Izuku knew she was doing it with care and affection. Of course their actions could be considered for many around as some sort of couple, some girls gushing from the cozy act of our teen with his partner, almost sister-in-arms. Note: Izuku it's a year older than Bakugo, so it could fit the aging of Toga. I hope you enjoy. And they are around their 15 in this episode if you are asking. Izuku wasn't silly, he knew he got some attention of his surroundings as well as Toga, but he wasn't really paying attention to those eavesdroppers. In truth, he was paying attention to where he was. Musudafu, the city where he had born and the place where he spent his first years of life before the evil of AFO got to locate them and forced them to hospitate in Hosu, the memories of his childhood and the ash-blonde kid that was once his very best friend and the only one that accepted him as brother and friend. Knowing him, our teen knew he would be very prideful, but that wouldn't really bother him. He had potential of a hero, something he unfortunately couldn't thanks to how the world it's cruel about his father's backstory as the Reaper and the fact that he was quirkless, which made it more difficult to be accepted everywhere, even though he already was working as waiter in Green Valley and as a bartender and owner of the Devil's Cove, Toga his waitress. "I just hope you don't become someone I prefer not to judge." Katsuki. Achoo. We hear someone sneeze in the middle of a classroom, as everyone around him got a bit into the defensive and clearly intimidated. "Who was he? Why you okay, Bakugo?" the teacher asked, a bit intimidated, as he revealed the identity of the one that sneezed. Now 14 years old, a certain ash-blonde boy with a wild spiky hair and red eyes that showed someone of a very bad demeanor. He is Katsuki Bakugo, the once childhood friend of our teen and the star of his school, Aldera Junior High. "TCH. The fuck you care," Katsuki said with his typical angry Pomeranian demeanor, as his sentence made the teacher shut his mouth and continue the class. The other students, not wanting a beating plump, also decided to continue in class. Katsuki, after the sudden death of Izuku thanks to the accident in his home, instead of believing it like all kids would, he had a hunch that, thanks to his uncle Hisashi, Izuku and his auntie have maybe escaped the accident and lived somewhere else, him and his mother knowing that Hisashi had in some way very bad reputation with the law and many criminals. Katsuki made the self-proclaimed goal to find Izuku wherever he was, getting to do many croquoises around Musudafu that he had to explore in his days of school. Of course he didn't had much success thanks to not knowing where the Midoriya family was and that only Izuku was alive. But his goals also became less important as something else happened. His old hag, as he calls his mother, became pregnant again, having gave birth to a little girl of almost the same characteristics of him and his mother, except that she was a bit more calm than both thanks to his old man genes, as Katsuki could tell, even though she could be as explosive as he was, him himself calling her with the authorization of his mother Katsumi, being 5 years older than him. He basically became a brother that he had to give an example to her, which turned to Katsumi basically copying the angry Pomeranian demeanor of his, but more calm as his mother. 10 years and no success at all. I know you're here somewhere, nerd, but where, damn it? ? Katsuki thought with frustration as he had in hand behind his notebook a photo where he had an image of him and Izuku as kids, Izuku being the older brother figure that took care of him even if he was very resilient to care thanks to his demeanor. This photo was his memento and main incentive to search for him even after all those many years. He couldn't have a talk after his revelation of being quirkless to him, the last day he saw him before going away. I know you're here, Deku. I hope you haven't forgotten me, my friend. Badump. Our team stopped his tracks below a bridge, as him and Toga were having a little sandwich the two bought before going to the station that would send them back to Hosu, Toga sensing the change of his movements. Something wrong, Izuku? Her asking, intrigued as our teen was looking to the city, leaving his sandwich halfway. Just a little bit of nostalgia, Himiko. Nothing more, our teen said with a low tone as Toga, although a bit flustered that he called him by her name, got into a bit of deep empathy as she was told by him his past, knowing that in some way Musudafu was a source of many memories for him. But just as their meal was being enjoyed, they felt later that they weren't alone, feeling a presence nearby. Sighs, and just in the middle of our meal, Toga said with an angry pout as she was frustrated to have been interrupted in her recess, Izuku just turning his stare to his back as he knew the presence wasn't a demon for their luck, but even so was frustrating to find yourself with a criminal just when you aren't in the mood for a fight. Slithery mossy noises, well, look what I've got here, 2 perfect decoys to hide very well. A third noise was heard when from a little sewer behind them, a sludge coming out of it as it had a couple of eyes and a mouth that had a menacing look, but compared to a demon, it was just another pain in the noggin, that wasn't invited in the chat. Toga was prepared to take out one of the Seros out, but Izuku stopped her as he told her with a head movement that it was unnecessary, Toga having to pout not content but followed as she could tell it was pointless. Well, who wants to be my disguise, kids? The sludge said with a tone of menace as it didn't affect our teens, Toga being slightly disgusted by its looks as our teen was not even fazed at all of him. I must apologize to you then because neither me or her will be part of your scheme, so if you excuses us, joins Toga with one arm, we are leaving, thank you, Izuku said as he was clinging to the girl, Himiko being clearly flustered and inside happy as she was hugged without resistance by our teen, both of them going to the exit as they had no humor for a battle as Toga secretly enjoys the embrace. Visibly angry, it wasn't a question, kids, it was a fact. The sludge rushed at them with intentions to assault the two, as he neared them from the back. But his tracks were stopped as he was impacted by a little flame charge of emerald flames that a now slightly angry Izuku fired at his face, the sludge screaming in pain from the sudden outburst of heat invading his slithery face. Didn't your mom told you that nearing people without their consentiment wasn't educate? Izuku asked in a tone of dislike as even Toga was starting to get annoyed, preparing one of her Seros this time to impale his eye if she had the chance. You fucking moron. The sludge screamed, now angry as he rushed this time with intentions to attack them, Toga pretty pleased to have him near in order to make a dance of blood and knives begin with the sludge being the main address. But just as this was about to happen, both Toga and Izuku felt a surge of humongous power come through their senses, making them back up from slam of the sludge as they've exited the tunnel now on guard. Why? As the sludge was about to rush for another impact, the sewer's lid was suddenly ejected from it, making it turn to the back as then. Laughs. You have got to be. Both Toga and Midoriya thought as they now were seeing what they've feared mainly. A large blonde and bulky man came from the sewer as his mere presence was enough to scare the sludge, Toga not being so different as she was also a bit intimidated, but the most affected was our teen, but not into the intimidated fact, but more into the fact that he was now meeting one of his idols besides his own father. Fear not, citizens. The bulky man completely stood now in front of the lid, as his blue eyes now pierced through the sludge's eyes, because I am here. As he shouted his main phrase, now making it sure who he was. All Might. Himiko and Izuku thought now having a clear sight of the hero, knowing it was best if he didn't knew they were the Jewel Duo as they were being called recently. All Might. The sludge exclaimed as he now had his eyes on the hero. You will not stop me, All Might. Now rushing towards the hero as he was certain to not want to get inside jail. But instead of getting intimidated, All Might started to get adjusted to a pose that both our teens knew what it meant, getting to get out of the tunnel's way in order to not get caught into it. Texas. All Might started to chant as the sludge was now meters in front of him. Smash. Launching his fist forward afterwards of this word as a powerful air force current invaded the tunnel, pushing the sludge back as an indomable force. Toga from the outside holding her hands tight with Izuku's as she was also being pushed back, our teen making sure she wouldn't come flying from it. Just with the air force of his punch. No doubt why my dad had luck to not challenge him in his days as the Reaper, it would have been difficult to escape him in his prime. Our teen thought as thanks to his strength he was able to handle the pressure, but sure that would have been enough to launch him meters back as it almost did with Toga, who was basically held tight in his clothes. After the air force stopped, both teens recovered from the force as they've peeked into the tunnel to only see a complete mess of sludge cover its insides, Toga locating his eyes that were having swirls, maybe for not holding the pressure completely. Definitely I would not want to make him my enemy. Her thinking this as she observed the poor bastard being bottled inside a soda bottle that All Might had with him, Izuku making sure the sludge wasn't still active afterwards. I get that you are all right, both of you citizens. Their attention was taken as All Might located them observing the mess, having now the criminal inside the bottle completely as he was looking at them with his characteristic smile. Well yeah, although it's an honor to meet you as well, All Might, Izuku said as he answered back, Toga being behind him as she wasn't keen to start the talk as he was. I'm glad. For now I will bring this villain to the police and I will be having my way out. All Might said as he laughed a bit, packing the bottle with the villain in one of his pockets as both our duo could only think, what is up with him? Well, as I said, thanks for the help and we will also be going, Izuku said as him and Toga decided to go in order to not make suspicions of their identities as Uruzen and Golden Fallen, as All Might, although a bit curious and intrigued that they weren't asking him an autograph, also started to prepare for a high jump. But as he jumped, he didn't notice he had someone clinging to his leg, someone both our teens noticed. That girl was brave to do that. It would feel awful to experience that jump, Himiko said as she was basically trailing All Might from afar. Sighs, I have a hunch that this might lead to something else. Looks at Toga, it's your choice now. Grins, lets us follow, holds his hand tightly, shall we? Ladies first then. Both our teens decided to go where All Might went as they were sure that this might lead to problems, but their nature as hunters also told them that this might be also a bad encounter, especially for our teen, as he was sensing one demon, but one that wasn't just a lesser. I can sense the bloodkin of Sparta nearby. Is it maybe that same bastards from years ago? There's only one way to find out. Musudafu City near Aldera Junior High. Oi Katsuki. We locate ourselves near the school grounds of Aldera Junior High, as we see ourselves following the back of a certain ash-blonde angry Pomeranian boy that was now out of the school grounds, being also followed by two other of his classmates that were presumptively his friends. One of them being actually the one calling him out, as Katsuki, like many of us know, wasn't really a guy to be sociable. What do you want, fucker? This being answered as he replied back to the mentioned, of course not really taking it nicely as what a friend should be. You know, ever since childhood you have been pretty defensive towards anyone. I know you are one of the best and all in the entire school and that your quirk it's awesome, but what's the deal, Katsuki? First of all, the ash blonde interrupted with a clear tone of anger, the boy flinching back as well as his partner, do not fucking call me that. Second, we are not friends. And third, that it's not of your business, sucker. Katsuki yelled back as he once again returned his gaze towards his goal, returning home and get rid of the shit crawling his day. Whispers, TCH. It must be about that useless Dakuni that's he's like this. How? Asterisk. Thuds. Both of his companions flinched heavily when out of the sudden Katsuki kicked a bottle that came out of nowhere away, clearly in a sign that he did not like what he heard from them. "I dare you to repeat that fucker," Bakugo said menacingly as he turned his head slowly towards both boys, having a grin of anger in his expression as he was looking through their souls with it. Bakugo, don't tell me you're still searching for that trash," one of them asked, but clearly in the wrong way, as Katsuki exploded out a can of soda that he had in hand, as his eyes were piercing through him. "That trash, as you say, it's someone else than just a pathetic scum that always attaches to me every day, and by pathetic I mean that they only care of what I do instead of caring of their own fucking business," Katsuki implied as both boys were now sweating buckets. As it was heard, Izuku left right after his announcement of being quirkless. Of course, this making many make fun of this fact that made him weak and pathetically useless. This clearly pissing off Katsuki most of the times, as he had to teach more than one lesson to his unfortunate classmates that always dared to insult his big brother, even if the so-called Deku, being this a name implied by Katsuki as the short of Dekiru, is, "You can do it," which they shifted into the meaning, useless, wasn't there to actually defend himself, always bragging that it was so coward to come if he even was alive after the accident in the apartment where he lived. Through the years Katsuki put a wall to those insults, but even today they were still untouched, something that clearly pissed him off. Sparks out little explosions. "I won't say it one more time. Try to say that again and I will not think it twice to smite you to smithereens, and I definitely don't want that, or else I won't be going to UA. Understand?" Both goons nodded, scared shitless, as Katsuki was given the reputation of the demon spawn, thanks to how his mother was and the fact that he was just like her, this being clear as the two had a talent to be intimidating and scary to many thanks to their temper. But of course, this was not really a day of luck for both Katsuki and those boys. Remember the bottle he just kicked away moments ago? Both goons stared at the back of Katsuki, scared, as they started to walk slowly backwards, this of course getting the attention of Katsuki, as he was keen enough to tell when he was the responsible of fear of someone or a few, making him turn his head to the back to notice what the goons noticed. "Goo slither sounds. It seems my day wasn't finished. A perfect cover with an splendid quirk at that. Sounds fair enough." The same criminal that All Might caught inside the bottle ended up right at the place where Katsuki and these two were. The bottle Katsuki of course had to kick thanks to his anger. But why it ended up there? Well, let's go back some moments ago, more specifically with none other than the symbol of peace. Minutes ago, on top of a building in Musudafu City. "Who in the fuck are you and what did you do to All Might?" We hear a young female voice shout loudly through the city, as the tone of her voice seemed to be one of surprise, disbelief and clear shock, as she was seemingly witnessing something that indeed she was not prepared for. This female voice was using a primary school uniform from where Katsuki was studying, and also she was clearly similar in all cases to Katsuki. Why? Well, she was none other than the younger sister of this mentioned Katsumi Bakugo, her being a loud fangirl of All Might. Ignore the UA PE uniform, but you get what are her looks, although more childish than this. Like all days, she was returning from school early to meet up with her older brother. This being routine, as Mitsuki was aware that Katsuki could be hours away of home after classes for the same purpose to do a vain search of you-know-who, this being just another pain for Katsumi, as she was clearly witnessed before how much her brother did so. This, even if not taking a cost upon his academic progress, was clearly making him an isolated guy with no friendships at all, which of course worried the little girl. Izuku Midoriya, by what her mother told her, he used to be the best friend of Katsuki when he was around, being his Dakuni, as he was basically older by a year, but also a great nephew figure for Mitsuki thanks to her close relationship to his parents, which were friends of the family since college. She was indeed curious to meet him once, but it worries her for how much pain and energy it's costing to her brother, as she was aware that he was holding a photo of the two with his dear life. But today was an unlikely day. She was passing by a tunnel bridge when out of the sudden she was awestruck by a powerful gust that almost made her fly to the air, but once it subsided she was able to see what has happened, and she was sure to gush out in pure fangirlism. All Might, the mighty #1 hero of the entire world, was there, ending a match against what she could tell a villain, as he was picking it up with a bottle. Although what caught her curiosity was the two civilians in front of him. The girl of course was someone unknown, so she cannot say much of her, but the boy with her was awfully similar to the one in the photo of her brother, so much to that boy Izuku Midoriya, both freckles and green hair that rather gave her clear curiosity. But her actions spoke first as she could see that, after a small talk between the three, All Might was about to leave the place with a large jump, and out of instincts that she never thought to happen she clearly rushed towards him, and in the middle of the jump she managed to cling upon one of his legs. Of course the pro hero noticed her once in middle air, which caused him to land on top of one of the buildings nearby, as clearly Katsumi was hanging on his leg as her life depended of that, or else she was going to be a large puddle of blood in the streets or somewhere that she could have landed. Once on top of that building, she was clearly reprimanded by the pro for her reckless action, yet she was in doubt once she noticed the pro about to leave her behind. "Can someone quirkless become a hero like you?" she asked out loud, which stopped the pro on his tracks. "Is it really possible, All Might?" she asked again, trying to get an answer as she was clearly curious, mainly because Izuku was quirkless as her mother explained her. But just as the pro was seemingly about to answer that question, All Might was suddenly covered in a large cloud of steam as Katsumi could only look amused and clearly caught off guard by it. But her eyes popped out of her eyes in clear shock as after the steam, instead of the bulky All Might as she knew it, was a scrawny, skeleton-looking man of long blonde hair, which expression was clearly one that she was definitely not pleased with. And that brings us to the actual situation. Now, All Might, being in front of her as she was not believing what she was seeing. "I am All Migig," the blonde said as he puked out some blood from his mouth, Katsumi being a bit perturbed yet not believing what she was hearing. "You have got to be kidding me if you want me to believe that." All Might, it's an unstoppable hero with a fierce smile that even in the worst times it can't be bothered by fear. "Fear, you say?" All Might said, interrupting her, as his eyes were now on her. "Believe it or not, that smile hides more fear than you can possibly imagine." The man now went to the edge of the building, as he leaned on the fence on it, the girl looking at him confused. "No matter what have you seen today, this cannot be known by everyone, including your family, understood?" Katsumi at first was a bit doubtful, but she preferred to agree, as she could think it was for the sake of the pro's image, mainly because this was something the people would definitely not like to see about the symbol of peace itself. But she could now only see in shock and clear gross that the pro lifted his shirt to show a horrid scar that was clearly as big as a football ball. The sight of it was clearly disturbing. "This injury I gained it 5 years ago in a battle against a villain. I've lost half of my respiratory system and most of my liver and stomach was taken. Countless surgeries were made in order to repair the most possible, but even after the damage, it was an unrepairable wound." All Might got his gaze once again on the girl, as he looked at her serious. "My time available to be a hero was reduced to only 3 hours a day, after that I will always look like this." Katsumi was left shocked. All Might was only capable of doing hero work for 3 hours after such injury, but what was so dangerous that it could make such wound to All Might out of all the villains out there? "And to answer your question, kid, I'm afraid to say that it's an impossible feat to see." Of course this wasn't of the liking of Katsumi, as this meant that it was something of clear logic, yet disheartening to many that was as liable as that. "But tell me, where such question came from? As I'm sure that you have a quirk of some sort." "Well, you see," Katsumi started to explain as she had in mind an image of his brother with his old friend. "My brother used to have a friend that had unfortunately born with such characteristic. Yet my brother was someone so assertive to give a chance to this guy before we unfortunately were unable to see him again, this gaining the curiosity of the pro as well." "Why so?" "The day after he was diagnosed as quirkless, the apartment where he was living was lit on fire, no trace of either the boy of his family behind. Many believe them death nowadays, but my brother has a hunch that his childhood friend might be still alive, and he started to search for him relentlessly." Katsumi ended explaining as she then turned to see the pro with her eyes, internally pleading to him the next words. "I understand he might not be able to be a hero, but All Might, if you have the chance to meet him or find him, if it is possible that he is alive, will you bring him back to my brother?" All Might at first understood that the question was indeed one sincere and that she understood. But he never expected the request from her, but such eyes of a citizen in need was something he couldn't deny, so he only had one final question, as he stood of his place, looking at her with a serious expression. "What it's your name, young girl? And what it's the name of this boy you just talked about?" "Coughs X2, my name it's Katsumi Bakugo, my brother and I are alike." The boy I just talked, if I remember, it's called Izuku Midoriya, and he has been missing for 10 years, the girl explained as she looked at the pro with a smile. Midoriya, I think I've heard that name before from somewhere. I'll do what it's on my power to make your noble request, young Bakugo, but for now, before the pro could end his sentence, as he was checking his pocket. Boom. Asterisk. A loud explosion was heard from afar, making both of them turn to the origin of the sound, seeing a large dark cloud in one of the alleyways of the city, being the epicenter of the explosion. This immediately worried All Might, making him check his pockets, feeling nothing on them. Don't tell me that. That explosion. He turned to the girl, as the girl was now having an expression of great concern plastered on her face. The only person I know capable of that explosion is getting into a dreadful worry, Katsuki. She exclaimed, now horrified, as she rushed as fast as she could, getting to go through the emergency stairs in fast speeds as she was certain to know who was in danger. All Might also followed her with a similar level of concern. If his hunch was correct, then the villain in his grasp must have escaped when the two were conversating, this getting into a situation of absolute worry to the hero, as he knew how easily an innocent could get caught in trouble. But of course their discussion wasn't private at all. Both our teen and Himiko were witnesses of the entire conversation from the shadows, Himiko getting shocked to know that the symbol of peace was inside a very frail state right now. But our teen knew the answer of why, as he also was witness of it once in his life. All for one, he must be behind that reason, him thinking this as they also detected the explosion far ahead. It wasn't really their business to attend, but Izuku thought otherwise as he was capable of feeling it. Behind the tracks of Katsumi, an invisible silhouette was jumping on top of the buildings as it followed her. So it is you again, Gilgamesh Knight. Himiko, he said out loud as the girl besides him got her attention towards him. Get that girl and whoever it's inside that mess to safety, I'll be just behind you. Another one, right now, Himiko whispered, shocked as she knew the tone our teen was making. It meant clearly that a demon was nearby. Let me help you with it, Izuku. Himiko. He put an arm in front of her as his gaze was upon the horizon, his expression serious as his attention wasn't on her. This one, it's not a demon you can easily defeat, it's not like any of the lessers we have met and clearly out of your league. And it's going the same way they are, infatuated by the chaos. Izuku, is it one of them? The King of Sparta, she asked, clearly now understanding the situation, Izuku giving her a light nod that made her understand the situation. Izuku has told her about the demon that killed his parents, being in clear through research that it belonged to the once before legendary demon hunter Dante Sparta. She already had it hard against a full group of normal demons thanks to her human breed, and she knew that the King of Sparta were clearly demons of great power for the same reason, so she had no other choice but to obey the command of her partner, starting to undress as she had below her dressings her hunter costume, getting out of her bag her mask as well as the rest of the Sero Swarm blades. She was going to be on action at daylight for the first time in years, so she had to be presentable. Add the mask and holders for the Sero Swarm besides her waist. Hope you enjoy. You will treat me with an special meal course after this, Izuku, Toga said with daring eyes as she was now ready to follow. She knew how strong our teen was, making him the only one capable to fight the Sparta King for now. That's a deal, I see, huh? Well, better that than anything, Izuku said with some sarcasm as he also dressed into his hunter costume thanks to his powers, getting the two now on pursuit as Toga used the Sero Swarm as bridge to jump the top of the buildings as she followed Katsumi and All Might. In the case of our teen, he started to follow the demon from the back, not getting it to detect his presence as he later started to summon a weapon out in his right hand. Bringing out a C right now won't be wise if we are talking that All Might and multitudes of heroes are around here at this moment. I better bring this baby out for its very first hunt then, our teen thought as in his hand a katana blade of demonic green color was summoned, having clear details that it was a devil arm. But not just any devil arm, it was his own devil arm he forged not long ago, being this as he said its very first hunt in where it was going to be used. Time to show me what you are capable of. Damascus. At the site of the explosion, we are now located at the main place of the commotion, being a lone alleyway where a certain ash blonde was, him being there, but as the hostage of the now free sludge villain, as the villain was doing what it couldn't with our couple, trying to take control over Katsuki as the boy was clearly fighting back the villain, but at the consequence of making explosions that made it impossible for the present pros for helping him. Death Arms tried desperately to punch the hell out of the sludge, yet thanks to its property as slime it was clearly useless. Backdraft was trying to get the annoying witnesses out of danger, yet this was a complete takeout of action from the pro. Kamui Woods was also present, but like he also mentioned out loud, wood and fire weren't really good with each other, so he couldn't do much to help other than get any injured out of the way of the flames as much as possible. Mount Lady, the new rookie on the line that just made its debut on the same day, was completely useless at the situation, as her quirk, Gigantification, was facing its weakness, tight spaces. And more like that, the heroes clearly had the lower advantage in the situation, only being able to not get the rest of the eavesdroppers to get in trouble as they could wish for a more prepared hero to help in the situation. Right now both Katsumi and All Might managed to get to the site of the commotion, Katsumi already getting her eyes on her brother, who was clearly fighting back. Katsuki, her clearly eager to help as she passed through the citizens, only to be stopped by Backdraft. Sorry girl, but this is a very dangerous place to go. Dangerous my ass. Don't you see my brother right now? The girl exclaimed in a combination of anger and worry as Backdraft could understand the message as he looked at the sludge. The girl was the sibling of the hostage at that moment. We are trying what we can in order to bring him out of there, but right now the villain it's far of our possibilities to deal with. TCH, you're just being coward, do something instead of standing there damn it. Katsumi exclaimed at the pro in understandable anger. This was one of the reasons she was clearly a bit unsure of hero society. Most of them were good for nothing in her eyes, of course this not making her deny her brother could be one out of them in comparison. It must have escaped when young Bakugo attached to my leg that time, but right now I'm unable to do much thanks to reaching my limit. Damn, I hate this. All Might thought to himself as he could only observe the situation from one of the clear spots between the crowd, not being detected thanks to his actual looks as he could only curse himself for his impotence at the situation. Same impotence Katsumi shared as she knew she wasn't as experienced as her brother with her quirk, which will be explained later, and also because it was something out of her league. Grunting, stop whining kid. Just a couple of seconds and it will be OV. Exclamation mark quote. The sludge was saying in clear annoyance from the struggles of Katsuki, trying to get control over him. But he was interrupted abruptly as he sensed a knife pierce his eye, making him shout in pain as Katsuki had his face freed from his grasp, this being seen also by the present. Who the hell did that? Show yourself. Clearly angry, the sludge exclaimed as his eye was clearly losing blood at the moment, blood that was covering Katsuki a bit. Fufufu, never thought a slime had blood like any normal person huh? The crowd heard a feminine voice speak out in the sight as the slime could only start to recon it. This not being difficult as a silhouette fell from the top of the building meters in front of him as it showed a blonde girl kneeled on the ground, standing up as her honey-colored eyes looked at him. Her looks now completely got the pros on guard MT. Lady being the exception as she was recent. You've got to be golden fallen. Death Arms exclaimed out as him and the pros got on guard, Himiko now completely on her feet as she had in both hands one blade per each. Who in the hell are you? The sludge not recognizing her as he could only enter in guard, both Katsuki and Katsumi getting in clear intrigue of her. My, I feel offended that only these brutes know me and not you. What a shame indeed, Himiko said as she acted offended with her body as one girl of her age, getting now her eyes on the sludge as the mentioned had a couple of tick marks on its forehead, which was same to Death Arms and Woods actually, too bad then. I won't say it twice slime, points at Katsuki with knife, get your viscosious, ugly substance off the boy if you mind. Daytime it's not really my service time you know. This surprising some of the present as she was here to save the boy, although her actions were questionable thanks to the knife on the sludge's eye. Growls I don't care who you were and what you said. Not in a million years I'm letting this to go. The sludge refused, as he once again covered Katsuki's face with slime before he could act in defense, and dare to call me slime again and I will make you suffer. Okay, grins, slime. Himiko taunted the sludge successfully as the villain now charged furious towards her, unhappy of such discrimination. But like with anyone that knew of her, she was now an experienced killer of demons. So it was nothing out of the world to catch the crowd and villain off guard with her swift movements in zigzag, the villain only observing in shock how the girl easily got close to him, doing swift slashes with her knives that freed Katsuki of its grasp, her taking him before the sludge could counter-strike, throwing Katsuki to safety as she entered in an elegant yet sexy and deadly guard stance while looking at the sludge, who wasn't happy in the slightest. What was that again? Slime. Her doing more mockery to piss him off. You disrespectful bitch. The sludge exclaimed as it tried to bash Himiko again, but the convenience of the plot happened as the sludge and everyone present had their attention caught as something large fell to the battlefield, making the sludge turn to the back as Himiko knew who it was. How getting worried as she saw how her partner was launched back meters from the dust cloud as he easily stopped his tracks with Damascus, Izuku entering on the field as he stood with his gaze towards the cloud. First Golden Fallen, and now Uruzen. Two vigilantes of nighttime in daylight. How is this happening? This now turned into something more difficult than before. Are the pros going to be okay? The boy it's safe, but now we have two nighttime vigilantes and the villain here. More and more, the crowd was immersed inside chaos as both Izuku and Himiko, in their costumes, were now inside a dog's chamber of death, being surrounded by pros as the sludge was no longer the main worry of the pros. This was obvious as Death Arms tried to attack Himiko from the back, attack that failed thanks to her agile move towards the wall of the building, dodging the pro as she had eyes upon the others that were eager to assault her. On the contrary of the sludge, whose attention was on our teen, who was now between two dangers. One, the sludge, which was not as bad as the second one, which eyes were only visible thanks to the cloud of dust that was blocking the sight of everyone on it. And our teen only had one solution. Well shit, our team thought as Himiko deciphered what he was about to do, getting her to go on top of the building as she was only now a witness of what was about to happen next. Here goes nothing then. Izuku, with the help of Damascus, started to swirl it in high speeds as the flames that covered the hallway started to form a large fire tornado that enclosed both the sludge and the demon inside, getting the pros and everyone outside to cover their eyes as the fire tornado was visible from afar. Gah! The sludge shouted in pain as the heat of the tornado was making it reverse into its real appearance, being a common street tug that fell unconscious after a couple of seconds from the heat. But our teen was concentrated more on the demon in front of him. Unfazed by the heat and bright orange thanks to it, the demon that once murdered his parents was in front of him at last, having its lifeless metallic eyes on him as it was kneeled, ready for a powered-up strike from the drill on its arm that was clearly made to pierce. Demonic language, Bergant. Bring it on. Gilgamesh. Our teen said daringly as he was now ready as well for the demon, Gilgamesh not wasting time to rush in milliseconds towards him, time that Izuku also took to our teen to prepare one palm of his hands to be in front of him. Whispers, this is payback, fucker, this being the last he said as he summoned a powerful torrent of emerald flames at Gilgamesh right before it pierced him, pushing the demon with such power that it went through the building behind as the flames almost consumed it, Gilgamesh being highly damaged that it was forced to flee the place before a citizen could catch sight of it. We will meet again. I'm sure of it. Izuku thinking this as he stopped the tornado as well as his movements, the flames ceasing out, letting him at sight as the sludge was now shown as a tug, unconscious on the floor. Silence was in the ambience as everyone was witness of the victory of Uruzen, Katsumi and Katsuki, as well as All Might being the most aware witnesses on the area as Izuku turned to look at the boy. His emerald eyes locked sight with his red eyes. That exact time Katsuki was capable of locking eyes with Uruzen. At that time both had a little event of time stop, alike, Katsuki getting one certain thing. Green emerald eyes, green hair, appearance of a year older than him and most of all. Pyrokinesis, one so similar to a certain man he knew when he was a boy, one that was part of his family acknowledges. Mouth movements Deku. Katsuki's words weren't audible, he didn't even say it, but his mouth clearly gave that message as he was looking at our teen, who was simply standing there as his female partner descended besides him. Both of you, on your knees and without weapons now. Arms, Woods and another pro exclaimed out in demand as they were now in front of the two youngsters, Himiko prompting to get on guard if it wasn't because our teen ordered out with his hand to not to. This as All Might was only observing from behind as Backdraft got the chains on the now fallen sludge villain. First of all heroes, there is no need for being this aggressive, I do not plan to hurt anyone else, neither my partner here, Izuku stated as he looked at the heroes unfazed, this as his eyes were eyeing them if they tried to attack him from the back. Either way, your actions as vigilante must be punished Uruzen, so I won't repeat again my words. Death Arms stated as he was ready to use force on Uruzen, Artine sighing in defeat as he knew he wasn't going to get out of there without doing more commotion. Why am I not surprised that you won't trust me into this? Points at the sludge, the only one injured here, it's him and no one else if you have noticed. My partner got out that boy of its grasp, so I would appreciate if you at least put your fists down and your partners behind as well. I'm not in the mood for a fight, Izuku explained as he dropped Damascus to the ground, getting him to order Toga to do the same with Sero Swarm, the girl not really sure of it but doing so as well as she let only 2 on the ground, the other 7 hidden pretty well on her clothes as they were not on sight. Death Arms was clearly seeing this fishy, as like most of the heroes present, weren't keen to trust vigilantes so lightly, All Might being also into these part as he knew that vigilantes weren't really a legal part of the society, yet he could tell that our teen was honest on his words, as the boy clearly surrendered any movement that could be deadly towards the present. But as you say, Izuku said suddenly as he got the attention of the pros, smirks, mine and my partner's profession cannot be paused unfortunately, and don't worry. We will make sure to not harm anyone else like this more casually, as he confessed in that point, making Toga quickly take her Seros as Izuku took Damascus up in a swift move. Hey, hold on. Death Arms and the other pros tried to stop the two, but Midoriya, undermost of them, summoned a demon magic circle invisible to everyone, piercing the ground in a powerful impact as both him and Toga were surrounded by an emerald small pillar that consumed them in a matter of seconds, making an escape of the situation as Arms cursed that event. The citizens were as shocked, confused and also scared, as they've just presenced how a vigilante escaped the grasp of multiple heroes without trace, this mainly being the worry of the most susceptible basically, but for All Might, it was actually just the beginning, as he mysteriously found in his pocket a card of unknown origin with one contact, a direction below and also a name printed on it, one that clearly gave him one curious gaze. Devil's Cove, him asking himself this as he looked at the card, looking once again to where Uruzen and G-Fallen were seen as he could only guess. This could possibly be my answer of this, as I clearly remember that something else was involved into this, and by its looks, something not human. With that thought, All Might left the scene as the pros took care of the sludge, leaving the place on its own situation as he decided to make a little visit towards the place mentioned, this of course not getting a positive reaction from Katsumi, as she got her eye on him and she was sure he had something to say. I'm not going to ask why are you here, but why? Katsuki asked coldly with a minimal of concern towards her, this being common for the girl as his affection act. Not of your concern, dickhead. Tick mark plus comic anger, what did you say? What you've heard, and of course the two entered in their common argument. For the people outside it was kind of rare, but for the Bakugos it was just another normal way how the brothers talked to each other, not for hatred, just two Pomeranians inside anger issues. Devil's Cove Hosu City, a couple of hours later. Are you sure you made the right action calling him here? Himiko asked clearly concerned and doubtful as she was tidying up one of the tables in the bar, clearly disturbed that her partner was sure to bring someone very dangerous to the place, mainly that specific person. Shelves sounds it was that or let ourselves get captured back there Himiko. Our teen answered back at her as he was now ending the preparatives of the bar table, having now his uniform of the Devil's Cove, being serious as he was sure of what he was mending with. Himiko could only accept in defeat as she could only get ready when their guest came from the door, visibly shivering lightly as she was not keen to enter in a talk between her with pros, especially because of what she had done before meeting Izuku and becoming Golden Fallen. She was already one of the many criminals in the wanted list of the law, mainly from how many people's lives she had taken. Other than that, those were the only worries of Himiko about the situation, as she already got used of being seen in her own uniform, which she selected it herself. Even if our teen was doubtful of it, but it actually worked as it could. Well, the uniform as waitress, because as Smith she wasn't very keen to do it, not to say that Izuku had to teach her how to tidy up an entire business from scratch thanks to her poor abilities at the beginning. This is her waitress uniform. Enjoy. Even if her looks were daring, for Izuku it was already sure that she only had eyes on him, mainly of the many times she teased him physically when in break times, thing his father taught him well how to hide his hormones in that kind of situations. Door knocks. The sound of the door being knocked was already a sign for the two that the matter was about to begin. With a nod, Izuku gave sign to Himiko to receive the customer, Toga getting prepared mentally to receive it as she and him knew who he was. Izuku's paw. In some way I could know how nervous Himiko was of this. I am as well. Not every day you are meeting none other than the symbol of peace itself, mainly if you know from the beginning that you and your partner are a duo of vigilantes, people heroes have the complete authority to put under arrest. As Himiko opened the door, I could give a little internal chuckle to myself, as I could tell All Might was not expecting being received by a maid, his expression of nervousness being seen as he had eyes on Himiko. I know what kind of man he is, so I know completely that his eyes were of surprise and clearly that he was caught off guard, as I could tell the symbol of peace was not a degenerate. Welcome to Devil's Cove, sir, Wady Abayan. I received him gently as I held eyes with him, using the mixer in my hands as I was preparing a little martini for him getting a now calm expression as he saw me, and of course curiosity, expected. Good night, young man. He eyed the place a bit before returning to me. Is it perhaps your boss around? Him asking that. Sir, Himiko looked at him, as she was holding her chuckles as she was going to enjoy his next reaction. You are in front of the owner. And he took it more calmly than I've expected, as he was visibly surprised, yet he wasn't so shocked, thing that disheartened Himiko's chance to laugh, pouting angrily from that. I'm fairly surprised you two get this job under work, youngsters, but I'm actually here because, he took the card I gave him back at Musudafu, looking at me with clear curiosity and seriousness. Are you two perhaps close to Uruzen and Golden Fallen? Because. I'm surprised you aren't as fool as I thought. I interrupted him as he looked a bit shocked at me, more scared with my next words. All Might. How do you? IIT Might was unrespectful, but we kind of eavesdropped your talk with that blonde girl back there, Himiko confessed as she was rubbing the back of her head with shame and nervousness, looking at the pro as he was seemingly collecting the pieces, and he did so. Are you too? Yes, like you hide your actual looks, we hide our main job as well, I answered him in confession. He was now aware of who we were and what really it's our true profession, one of our two illegal professions, him getting serious as he understood the situation clearly. Despite knowing what you are and who I am, why did you invited me to your house out of all places, young man? Not to remind that I'm curious why two youngsters of your age are in such noble, yet disrespected profession. That last phrase actually caught our intrigue of both me and Himiko, but he was right to ask. I am being brave inviting the #1 hero inside our home and headquarters. Sighs, I laid down the mixer as I had served already a cup, looking at him as Himiko went besides me in protection. She was right to be careful at this moment. You would be really curious, All Might, but in truth we weren't planning to follow you or neither meeting you, mainly of how busy you tend to be with media thanks to your popularity. I could tell he already caught our similarities to how we met back at Musudafu before the sludge, him now getting curious. Is it about the girl, or what I could tell you were really after from what I saw in there? Both me and Toga were surprised. I'm a professional young man. I clearly caught eye on what fell with you before you reunited with your partner when she took that young man out of danger. I must have guessed that to happen. Gilgamesh was kind of visible, yet because of the sludge, it was easy not to get the people's eyes out of the main event. In that you are profusely correct, All Might, but because of my professional matters that it's something confidential. Either way, I appreciate that you have taken your time on having a little chat with us, despite knowing what we are and that you had the gentleness to not chain us to jail. I said as I was hoping for him now to go, knowing it would be very careful if he knew my real identity and who might be my father, especially his backstory. Confidential, huh? I also appreciate the hospitality, young man, but next time I meet you as Uruzen I won't hesitate to take you down, as well as your partner. And I'm sure you understand. I nodded back at him as I was aware that he might have said that, Himiko obviously nodding as well instinctively, knowing it wasn't going to be pretty. But just as he was about to leave, he turned back to us as he asked something I clearly foresaw as a next time. Can I least conserve your contact? In case we want to have a chat like this. I just signaled with my hand to do so, as he could only give a light smile before closing the door behind himself, leaving me and Himiko alone as she was poking her head cutely from my back. We are not endangered anymore, are we? Her asking as she was visibly a bit nervous. Relax, Himiko. One thing it's law, another it's liquor and gastronomic business, I say at last as I started to sip on the cup I left in the table. In some way I knew he wasn't going to take it, so I prepared it on my own like. Sighs in relief, thank goodness, but talking about business. Why am I getting flustered and surprised? If I knew she was going to cling onto me in a very passionate way, having an expression full of lust in her eyes, how about you give me some service, Izuku? 2. They told you to calm your hormones, Himiko. I exclaimed a bit nervous as I could only hear her giggle entertained. I kind of hate my demon heritage, this kind of things tend to happen to me thanks to it. But as I was able to think, I knew I was going to meet All Might later, mainly because it's the very first time I let myself be seen in daylight as Uruzen, same for Himiko. But that little girl, it was no doubt about it. Auntie Mitsuki didn't waste her time, and I'm happy for Katsuki, but I also have a hunch that I would be meeting those two. I'm afraid this is going to be connected some way, and knowing Mundus, you're not going to make it easy for me, isn't it, bastard? If Gilgamesh was out as a demon, then it meant that in one way you have taken Dante out of the mess, because I'm sure Gilgamesh was once one of his devil arms. How many demons will you try to throw at me? And more importantly, where are you now, Nero? Musudafu City, Izuku's Cove. A couple of months has happened since my little chat with the #1 hero, as I and Himiko were clearly busy and full of many other activities regarding the Devil's Cove Smith and part of the bar restaurant. We've got ourselves to fix over 300 machines and electrodomestics in all this months, me and Himiko getting clearly exhausted and covered by a lot of tar from their repairment, I doing the most I could while Himiko was my helper. We've been helping many people along the way also. At Green Valley I was being one of the main chefs under the kitchen, helping in making meals that attracted a clear majority of people thanks to that. A couple of pros like Uwabami and the recent Woods that has been causing some ruckus around. Heck, seeing this second one was kind of a pain, but filling his stomach with a good meal Midoriya flavored he basically ate like if it was the most loving thing in the world. Many had praised me for my cooking skills, same for Himiko as she was an expert on keeping clean all the place in a matter of minutes and like if the place was cleaned with a pro as it looked like new. Me and Himiko really enjoy our jobs. But of course not everything was in pink. Thanks to our daylight appearance through the sludge event, many pros have started to extend their search for us even more, in nighttime being this time more active as both Eraser and Midnight were giving us a tiresome night hunt. Not to say that other pros like Fourth Kind and Tainama, a hero of my own that has a quirk that enable him to have night vision, were also becoming more active, as well as night patrols. God damn, hunting was now a challenge. And indeed a challenge. We have seen a lot of Scudos, assaults, impusas and even some basilisks, making it more challenging as this last one and the assaults were agile ones. There was once that we were forced to battle an Impusa queen and some red Impusas, followed by a riot and a couple of chaos. At that fight Himiko was forced to flee while I had to take a beating to defeat them all, mainly the Impusa queen. As punishment that day Himiko had to get paid in some way that I was not going to allow, but it happened just because she wanted. She basically jerked me off and took a little taste of my manhood, of course making me feel good and her with even more sexual hunger towards me nowadays, and man. I had to try many times for her to not rape me while sleeping, obviously her not happy with my decisions, yet she kept kidding me for that, but killing demons seemed to be my only solution as she discharged most of her stress on them with a deadly dance of knives that I could clearly admit that it could take a lot of blood from many pros nowadays. But returning to the present, we were having a little break at the Devil's Cove, Himiko playing a bit with her Seros as I was testing a mode of combat combining a sea and Damascus in a duet of death that if I perfection it could lessen my efforts upon demons. We were being happily ever peacefully as then. Knock X3. We stopped our activities as soon as we heard the main door being knocked, making me unsummon both my devil arms immediately as I returned to my place, Himiko packing away her battle knives as she combed a bit her hair before going to the door, opening it as she received one face that I thought I was not going to see again this soon. Hello there, youngsters. It was All Might, but in his Skelemite form as Toga called it, him being the one on the door. Something the matter, sir? I asked as I know that revealing his name of hero out in the wild would cause a ruckus, Himiko being keen to any kind of movement he might do if we lowered our guard. This as we saw the pro pass through the door, him having a neutral expression. I guess that it's not his style holding a smile while not being in hero work. Sorry to interrupt you both in your job, youngsters, but I have come here to tell you something to you too. Now this was curious, even Himiko could agree with me as she was also intrigued of what he meant. You didn't interrupt anything, sir, we were actually pretty unoccupied today. But may I know what is this? Something, you have to tell us. I asked as I was sure that it could be either something serious or something private, as we were talking of a hero plus Vigilantes wasn't really a good equation together. That's good to know, but returning to the main matter at task. Have any of you two heard about the upcoming admission exams, period? Now this is curious. May I know why are you asking me this, All Might? I asked, clearly confused, as me and Himiko were aware of the exams period by obvious reasons. Working in a cafe restaurant allows you to hear many things, and the entrance periods aren't unique matters. You see, this is something private what I'm going to tell you, but this New Year's are going to have the honor to have me as a teacher from this period. Me and Himiko literally had poker faces on our expressions, as we weren't really convinced. You, the symbol of peace. Teacher. Himiko taking my question out of my own lips as she pointed at him, not convinced at all. Is there something wrong with that? All Might, visibly offended, asked us as he was sure to detect our uneasiness on the matter. Well, Mr. Symbol of Peace. To be honest with you, you aren't really the type to act as a teacher with how you normally behave around people. I was honest, seeing him as a teacher would be a great honor. If he knew how to teach in the first place, other than that he's just another brute with no express in teaching techniques. I'm going to make myself that I didn't hear that, but in some way I cannot really argue against that. At least he was honest, Himiko giggling a bit as he seemed to be a bit embarrassed. Yet I could tell he was hiding more with his expression. But in truth I came here with a little message, thought so. And said message is, I asked, not being sure of it, as I'm a 100% sure that this will be a very bad idea, especially if it implies getting ourselves between a lot of crows. Well, I was able to enter in UA as teacher thanks that I have a friendly connection with the principal in charge. Rubs the back of the neck, and I kind of slipped your existence to him accidentally. Both me and Himiko facepalmed ourselves in clear annoyance. This guy, it's very careless when it comes to be a person, as it seems. What's the deal with it then? I asked in defeat, as I know that I have no other choice other than getting my ass in front of the principal of UA itself, which meant me and Himiko being in front of a multitude of heroes, especially Eraserhead and Midnight. You and your partner are invited to go into a meeting with him at his office in UA, which means that you are going to enter in hero territory, and I'm sure you will be against it, but he demands it, and it's up to call the best of the best alongside police if you don't go there at midday. I bumped my head on the bar's table as I was now into a sword and wall situation, Himiko being visibly displeased as I am. It was basically an obligation instead of an offer. Sighs. What time is it, Himiko? It's almost 10 in the morning, Izuku. We better get ready because I don't want to be in jail. Do I? No need to, All Might. I lived in Musudafu before, so I have an idea where Ua is. I was just too frustrated to even look at his face right now, as I started to change my clothes into a more casual form, as well as Himiko was, doing this of course out of the sight of All Might, as I could tell that he was waiting outside in a table for us to go. This day just had to start, ironically. Great. End Izuku's POV. Musudafu City, Bakugo's household. Third person POV. We locate ourselves within one certain point in Musudafu, being none other than the Bakugo residence, home of the closest friend in life from Inko and Hisashi. But why were we here? Ever since the report of the fire provoked at the Midoriya's residence, Mitsuki was clearly saddened and devastated, as her long-life friends were now gone, and not only that, their innocent young child without the chance to grow into a full-grown man, which also disheartened her completely by knowing that. But all wasn't unfortunate as well. Katsumi Bakugo, her newest daughter on the family and younger sister of his son, she was for her like a little redemption for not protecting the little Izuku, having Inko's dream of having a sister for Izuku, as Inko was unable to bear another child after the mentioned. But of course she knew how stubborn her son was and how he was growing. Without an older figure to follow, Katsuki was clearly seen as some sort of scoundrel of the family, as the guy had a very bad temper like her and Katsumi, but unlike the two, he was unable to control his temper and was easily described as a ravenous Pomeranian dog, but her main worries about him were other things in matter. She could tell that her son was unsure of the notice of her friend's disease, mainly because he was sure that his Oni-san was still alive and around somewhere in the city, making him explore and expose himself to many dangers in his brigade to find his lost brother, which she can relate as very deep in her heart. She had a small hunch that maybe one of the Midoriyas was still alive, yet her mind wasn't believing such hunch. But returning to the present, she was now aware that both her offsprings were at the living room, thanks to lending them a break for studying purposes, having a chat that she was eager to hear, as not long ago the matter of the sludge happened. "Oni-chan, stop bragging nonsense and concentrate in your homework," Katsumi exclaimed out, clearly annoyed as she was visibly having some issues on doing her activities. "Nonsense my ass. You and I were that day and you were able to see what I saw." "There was no doubt that I saw him there." Now this intrigued Mitsuki, as she knew what her son was relating with him. Don't you read the news, brother? Those two were Uruzen and Golden Fallen for the first time in daylight. Nighttime vigilantes. I know what a shitty vigilante is, little hag. But I am certain that I saw Izuku behind that mask of Uruzen. His eyes, his fucking eyes were enough for me to recognize him. I know it's him. Or what else do you think that bitch of GF saved me for? Saving you, it's not an excuse to defend a vigilante. And that it's nonsense, Katsuki. There's no way that the Izuku you know would turn a vigilante like Uruzen, especially someone like him. You say that, but in all the matter that has been researched about Uruzen is that he hadn't taken a life or anything similar, villains included, so Uruzen it's not really someone guilty other than using his quirk illegally and without permission, but you ain't taking from me what I saw. Izuku was there in front of us and he knew it when we crossed gazes. Katsuki ended the argument as he returned to his activities by slamming his fist on the table, Katsumi being a bit careful because of knowing how her brother could behave when angered, but also seeing no other term to discuss as both siblings returned to their duty. But Mitsuki was able to hear every word they've said between each other, getting herself shocked and even more astonished. Thanks to being Hisashi and Inko's best friend since high school, she knew perfectly than any other how skilled the two were and how they behaved. This included on knowing the once real job Hisashi had as Exodius, the Grim Reaper, knowing the guy was for all facts the #1 vigilante, something no one, including her husband, knew of. But more specifically, she knew thanks to Inko that Hisashi was someone special, so special that made him superhuman without his quirk at all, his quirk even being something out of reach in human levels as not even Endeavor would be able to compete against it with all his might. Hearing about Katsuki that Izuku was alive, in his words, was to say that maybe her hunch wasn't just a coincidence, as she could tell Hisashi trained Izuku in some matter, but it wouldn't make any sense as they've perished in the fire, right? Are you really out there, Izuku? Are you really that Uruzen people are speaking about recently? Mitsuki asked to herself as she decided to return to her own matters, cooking the meal that her family will eat in the meantime. Old hag, we are hungry. Talk to me with respect, brats. Mitsuki exclaimed in her own anger as she heard both Katsuki and Katsumi asking for food, as she was clearly annoyed to say that her daughter caught one periodic yet annoying trait that Katsuki has on her: insult her when talking. Musutafu City UA Academy. How much until we get there, Izuku? Be patient, Himiko, we're just a couple of miles ahead. We see once again our teen alongside Himiko, as both of them were now on foot towards UA. As they've decided to go there without the pro-hero that invited them in the first place, as they didn't want to cause commotion for being with him while nearing UA, as the man came to them in his own transport, they wanting to go by foot in order to process lightly the fact that the two of them, the jewel duo of vigilantes, were about to enter into the territory of multiple heroes, two of them being clearly two of the some that were pursuing them both. In all logical cases it was a suicide attempt for a criminal to be surrounded by its enemy in a place that was clearly like an HQ of them, but they were invited with a clear warning that could end their careers. Not that it was scary, but with demons and Mundus followers exploring the world freely, it wasn't really a good idea to get caught, mainly because they were the only ones that could hunt them. Not that heroes were weak or anything, as Endeavor was a big challenge like All Might and the rest of the top, but there were demons far beyond them and with the clear power to kill them. Mundus himself was basically a god, so risking it wasn't an option. Izuku could tell that Himiko was nervous by how many times she had tugged his sleeve and attached to him, this being a cute sign for him that she wasn't comfortable with the idea of being in said place, him not really being faced by that thanks that he was capable of challenging them head-on, but with All Might present that was clearly out of reach and it would be a very bad idea to do so, mainly because he knew how heroes could work perfectly in balance with teamwork, so yeah. Not risking any chances, apart that it wasn't his style unlike his own father, who was clearly capable of handling himself against them if he wanted. After a couple of miles walking, in where such miles Himiko was getting even more nervous. Both teens were able to get on sight the large barrier that covered the facility around, if the building wasn't big enough to be seen from afar already, as Izuku was indeed starting to get a bit on guard, getting Wyvern and Ivory ready in case he was forced to use lethal force against them, knowing that they were able to erase any kind of ability Himiko had as she did have a quirk like him, even though his was basically his demon powers. After a bit more of walking, Izuku and Himiko were able to see from afar that the main gate already had 3 people waiting for them, one that was of course All Might in his civilian form. But the other 2 was between a combination of uneasiness, as it was none other than Eraserhead and a little mouse, bear, whatever it was between the capture scarf of this mentioned. But Izuku was sensing something cheesy about it that it was making it more eager to enter in guard. "Welcome to UA youngsters." The small thing talked with a cheerful tone as he received both our teen and Himiko kindly, getting them to think it carefully. "No need to be on guard, I'm the principal of this place." "Principal, you whatever you are?" Himiko asked as she pointed at it, not really sure if she heard it right. "I'm a mouse, a bear, a rat. No one knows, but either way follow us. I don't want our visitors to get lost here," the principal said calmly as it directed Eraserhead to move on as well as All Might. The underground hero having a clear glare upon the 2 teens as he seemingly was aware of who they were. Izuku and Himiko giving their own stern looks towards him as they weren't clearly in positive terms between each other, this as the teens followed the adults through the installations, being casually inside a resting time as both teens were able to detect multiple student presences inside the place, being clear that their presence might get the curiosity over the youngsters if they caught sight of them. And they weren't wrong. Once being in the halls they were able to see how many of the students stared at them curious and intrigued, as they were of course unknown to them, but as our teen thought, Eraserhead wasn't really a patient man or tolerant, seeing how his glare was capable of dispersing the students away into their own business. After a lot of walking, in where both Himiko and Izuku caught sight of Midnight, who was once happy like any woman until getting aware of them with a stern glare of clear dislike, both teens now stopped their tracks as they've seen the principal and the other 2 adults enter a room which our teen could tell was the principal's lounge, signaling with his head at Himiko to enter as both accepted the invitation and entered. Once inside they were now aware of their situation, as Midnight entered just behind them while they clearly had the view upon all the present in the room. Hound Dog, Vlad King, Lunch Rush, Present Mike, Smintos, Ectoplasm, Snipe Shot, Number 13, Midnight, Eraserhead, All Might, Power Loader and none other than the principal. Yeep, we are completely surrounded. Izuku thought as he knew Himiko was now overwhelmed, seeing all the pros in front of them as the principal returned to his seat at the center, All Might and Eraserhead following as well as they've also took their seats. Before the principal was able to pronounce any words, Izuku was able to hear in slow time how Midnight was starting to rip her cloth around her wrist, making him point Ivory on her in fast speeds that alerted all the present, all ready to attack. "I'm not in mood for a fight, so I recommend not to provoke me Midnight," Izuku said sternly as the pro-heroine had the gun in front of her head, knowing he was eager to shoot if she tried something funny. "Drop the gun Uruzen," Eraserhead demanded as he had in hand his scarf, all the other pros ready to strike as well as the sound actually alerted part of some students outside. Coughs but the principal, who was unfazed of what happened coughed to get their attention, as All Might wasn't in his mood for a fight as well, knowing it was unnecessary. "Midnight, go to your seat if you please. Our visitors came here without any bad intention." But principal, he's pointing out his gun on me." "It's an order," the principal demanded sternly, not caring of the scared tone of the woman upon her life, Midnight looking back and forth to our teen as she could only surrender frustrated, going to her seat as our teen kept his gun on hand. "Young Uruzen, lay down your gun and forgive our manners, they have very little respect upon vigilantes. And if you knew that she was eager to attack us, why did you let her enter afterwards of me and my partner?" Izuku asked in demand as he packed ivory once again to his pocket, the pros still on guard as they knew for sure that he was deadly armed. My forgiveness then. I kind of forgot that you two didn't have a good relationship with her and a racer besides me, youngster. But don't worry, they'll be severely punished if the present try to attack you once again, the principal said as the pros were in disbelief of what they've heard, only retorting in taking seat once again, unsatisfied to know that they were warned if they tried to do their duty. Please do, it's not my style on taking human lives, Artine said as this now gave intrigue to the present, Artine now lowering his guard as he reassured Himiko to lower hers, as she also entered on guard with the sudden movement of the pros. I know you aren't. Vigilantes aren't exactly murderers like villains, and even if you say so, your expedient doesn't says anything about murder, which tells me completely that your hands are unstained of human blood, neither citizen, villains or heroes. This now intrigued our teens as well as it did with the pros, as Izuku now started to connect the dots, getting to have now a realization of what he was dealing with. Who are you, and tell me exactly your reason to contact us? Chimera, Izuku said sternly as now the pros were fully on attention of what they've heard, looking back and forth between Izuku and their principal as the principal didn't seem fazed, more because Izuku had in hand Wyvern as a sign of alert. My manners then, the principal said as he stood from his seat, going to the center of the round table as he got near our teen, who was eager to point Wyvern at him. I'm Nezu, and by how you have deciphered I am indeed a chimera, not to say that you aren't also entirely human as I see, the now proclaimed Nezu saying as now the pros were upon attention, Artine now clearly on guard as he also signaled Himiko to not act carelessly. How do you know of me? And again points Wyvern, what are your intentions, Nezu? Izuku was now pointing out Wyvern at him as the pros were now eager to attack as they've seen their principal in danger. This being stopped as All Might buffed himself and stood in front, signaling to not interfere as the heroes were clearly negligent of doing so. My, it seems your parents have clearly forgotten to tell you about me and who I was. After all, your father, your grandfather and I were once friends in our prime before I founded UA, Nezu said with a smile as he lowered Wyvern of his sight, getting now our teen to get curious before one thing attacked his mind, a memory. Flashback, Otosan. We see an 8-year-old Izuku trotting towards Hisashi, who was working upon a little engine that was under repairment. In what can I help you now, my son? Hisashi asked gently towards his son, as he left his equipment away as he hugged his son, lifting him off the ground as their eyes met. Nay, did you have by any chances a friend like I do with Kachan? I'm very curious, the young Izuku asked at his father as Hisashi was a bit surprised of his question. Oh well, but either way he was eager to tell his son, secrets between them wasn't an option since he revealed his demon heritage. Once before when I was a kid, I had a friend of me that was also a fugitive of the demon realm like me. Gasps, really? Izuku was surprised, as he was more eager to learn. Yeah, he was actually a warrior like I, and he had the ability to reborn like a reincarnation in other beings. He was actually once before friends with your Gramps and Sparta alike. He was named Galleon, and we enjoyed our time so much. But why aren't you two together then? If he was friends with Gramps and Sparta then it must be a powerful demon, Izuku asked curious as this indeed intrigued him, seeing his father change his semblance to one of nostalgia. Well, like every adult Izuku, Galleon and I pursued our own paths, him wanting to found a school of some sort. In truth I have no idea, while I stayed as Exodius and helped the needed. Events that lead to your father and I meeting and falling for each other, dear. Inko entered the chat as Hisashi let down Izuku, him having a smile as both him and his wife joined in a hug, agreeing to the revelation. Wow, it would be cool to meet him, Dad. Izuku was excited, as he was eager to know his father's friend. Well yeah, but last time I saw him he was a man that already deceased. I have no idea where he might be, but maybe destiny will allow us to meet up once again, Izuku, just time will know that answer. My son. Flashback ends. We return to the present, as the pros now looked confused as All Might and Himiko were when our teen now had a look of shock and disbelief, as he lowered his gun, looking at Nezu with said expression as the mentioned was now with a warming smile. As I thought, you look a lot like your father, young one, but your eyes and your behavior, you are a combination of both your parents. Izuku, Nezu revealed warmingly as now Izuku dropped his gun, getting him to be in disbelief. Wire, Galleon, Izuku asked in disbelief as Nezu's expression already gave him the answer, making our teen now nearly trip backwards if it wasn't because of Himiko, who was worried of his actual behavior. But the most shocked were the pros. Their principal and the vigilante in front of them seemed to be acknowledges from family line, but it now started to give them a new question: who was this kid's father? As it was the main reason of the doubt. But they were also unaware of the shocked All Might, as he also noticed what the principal said. The boy I just talked about, if I remember, it's called Izuku Midoriya, and he has been missing for 10 years. He's the boy that girl and her brother are searching for. All Might thought in clear shock as the pros were now in clear confusion, Nezu only chuckling a bit as our teen was recovering from the surprise. Had enough time to recover, young one? Nezu asked as our teen now was once again back on his feet, relaxing now as he was clearly caught off guard. Yeah, sorry for my manners, I've never expected this to happen, father, it seems your wish was done upon me. If you were alive, you would have loved this, Izuku answered while now returning his gaze upon the principal, recomposing his posture as he returned to a serious semblant. Even if I didn't expect this meeting, Nezu, you haven't answered my question yet, him saying this as he looked at the former demon. It seems your father taught you to go straight to the point, huh, young one? Nezu said in a sarcastic tone as our teen chuckled a bit from that. But you are right, Izuku, I actually wanted to make an offer to you too specifically. The principal returning to a serious semblant as well as all the present now turned into the matter, our teen getting curious of this. What is what you want to offer us, Nezu? Our teen asking this as he was indeed as curious as his partner was, getting to think that it had to be important. Well, as you can see, for this new year we started to get newer members of the staff, All Might being a sign of that as he might have told you, but I also made a little research upon your part-time job in daylight, your mother's cafe Green Valley and your father's bar, Smith and Restaurant Devil's Cove. So I kind of think of it and I asked myself, gee. If I had recruited the #1 hero on Japan upon my installations, how about I get a young couple with potential into it as well, but it has to be one with multiple jobs like craftery, cooking and even fighting skills. The principal said with a mischievous tone as he now looked at our teens, as both took a couple of seconds in suspense to detect what he was meaning to. Nezu, it must be a bad joke of yours if I think what you are thinking. Izuku being the first to ask as he now could detect it wasn't a lie, the pros also taking a bit of silent suspense to detect it until now they've got it. You must be joking, principal. Not in a million I will agree to that. Midnight of course not getting it gently. I accepted negligently that this buffoon here works with us from now on, but these two. I don't care if you have a good connection with this boy, but I simply reject that idea. Eraserhead following it up as he was certain to not want such answer to be true, the rest of the pros also arguing back uncomfortable as they've ignored the little insulted symbol of peace. This is my school, here are my rules, and no matter the circumstances I have made my offer politely. So speak again negatively without my authorization and your salaries will be suspended for this first upcoming semester period, Nezu said in a stern, warning tone as all the pros got shut suddenly, all of them having an uneasy expression as they've stayed shut in defeat. But Lunch Rush and Power Loader recalled a little bit of the talk. Wait a minute, principal, you've said Green Valley Cafe and Devil's Cove. Lunch Rush and Power Loader asked as their exclaim took the attention of everyone as the mentioned pros were clearly intrigued. That is correct, both of you. May I know why your sudden intrigue? Nezu asked, being actually curious of their knowledge, as Lunch Rush now seemed in fanboy spree. Green Valley and Devil's Cove have been considered by the media as one of the top 5 restaurants with the most exquisite tastes in meals in Japan. Mostly around the locals of Hosu and Musudafu. Lunch Rush exclaimed now in clear excitement as now this gave a bit of amusement to the others. Hey kid. Izuku heard Power Loader call him, the pro having a tone of interest as he turned to him, smithing. Do you know how to craft things? Him asking in clear interest. Takes out Wyvern and Ivory, where do you think these two came from, Loader? Our teen saying a bit proudly as he showed the guns to the pros, Loader now getting into clear amusement from the intel as our teen was clearly capable to craft usable weaponry. Anything bigger, Loader testing our teen as he was eager to know how much our teen knew. Well, our teen said slowly as he packed both his guns to later take out of nowhere his shotgun chrono, cocking it as he showed it to Loader, This big fella, it's almost unused, but it's as deadly as one of your one-pointer's cannon. He had even more dangerous gunfire. Midnight thought as she shivered from the thought, getting loader to now get more interested, as it was clear that our teen had an affinity with gunfire. Not to say that you yourself crafted my beauties as well, Izuku. Himiko thinking this with a light blush in privilege, as she was aware that her main weaponry was work of our teen. This of course made Lunch rush to think that our teen was also a great cook, making him wonder a time when our teen could show his cooking skills to him. And with your skill as Uruzen, you are clearly up for the task, so how do you say it, Izuku? Nezu asked at our teen as Izuku was seemingly between a very difficult task, as he already had it hard with the recent attacks of the demons recently, and not to say that he already caught some commotion around with his daylight appearance. What happens if I deny it? Izuku said in clear question, as then he could see all the pros on guard, getting to think of the obvious solution. One simple answer: you will only have 30 seconds until the alarms in UA get active, and the pros here will have all the liberty to bind you the very same instant you and your partner try to escape. And I wouldn't mind getting you out of Kamizen as well, Izuku said as he summoned Damascus and a C in a flash, being on guard, as the pros now got a bit intimidated by his show of intimidation, Aizawa trying to use his quirk on him to detect that he wasn't affected by it. Nezu knew that only All Might would be able to pin him down, as he knew the heritage of the Demon King of Sparta and Bergant were capable to do naturally, as well as he knew thanks to proper design that Himiko was very well trained for a normal human to be able to kill demons clearly well and to live to tell the tale. If you ask about your business for you to be this defensive, then I assure you that whatever the reason behind it, I won't stop you, and you will have the liberty to move around UA as you like, except if it means interrupting the school activities of the students. And also that your actions as vigilante will be monitored constantly by me exclusively, as I know clearly that you have other business than vigilantism that requires your gunfire and your blades. Nezu explained as he knew of his activities, this intriguing the present, as it meant that he had another job other than vigilantism ongoing, one that requires by their uneasiness deadly force. Izuku, thanks to knowing that he was dealing with Galleon, knew that he was going to be keen to observe his movements, as he was sure that he was curious about the recent demon assaults around Japan. Not to say that he kind of knew that he was aware of his existence as demon, and of course he was curious of his normal life, so he could only think on lowering his guard as he unsummoned his weapons, getting the pros to relax. Although curious, more All Might, of what his quirk was capable of, more this mentioned as he was informed that he was quirkless. Any kind of privilege for us to work for you, Galleon? Izuku asked as he emphasized both him and Himiko, getting the pros to flinch a bit, insulted as he made it seem that they didn't had enough privilege already. The ones have told, as well as the normal salary of them as well, and that you will be an assistant to any of them whenever they need it, mainly for the first years in the hero courses. Although that would mean that your identities as Uruzen and Golden Fallen are going to be secret to everyone here, and you will need to take a more innocent and more friendly name to be known with the students, Nezu explained once again, as Vlad and Eraser didn't get happy with that confession, making them uneasy to have a vigilante with them as partners. Same feeling for both our teens, not because of the part that they were working with heroes, but with the fact that their alter ego names will have to be modified. Thing that Izuku didn't like, mostly because it was a name his father blessed him with, but he could not think of any other solution, as he wasn't in the mood for a battle, and he was neither comfortable that he was in hero territory, him not wanting to involve innocents into a gig that it's not theirs. Money wasn't really his inconvenience, as he already gained enough with both Green Valley and the Cove salaries they've obtained periodically. But in truth his main inconvenience was his smith. Thanks to his father, he was able to find and mine from fallen demons pure Gilgamesh, which is basically a metal as pure and tough as titanium and platinum combined, more importantly, able to transfer demonic energy as gunfire or blade smithing, and that was a mineral he wasn't keen to let out in the wild so commonly. But it couldn't be that bad, as he had a hunch that this might get him to locate the Sparta demons quicker, so even if he wasn't happy with it, our teen only had one reasonable answer. Size. At least I want to make sure that every day I come here these clowns don't try to sneak behind my back every time. Agree. Nezu chuckled a bit from the pun, while the pros got a little triggered by it, not liking the term he used with them, as Himiko was hiding her giggles. No worries, they are warned if they try to with the same kind of punishment I've just mentioned, but it will be included with you if you try something funny as well. This sending them shivers as the pros understood it wasn't a want, it was a must. Well, then you have my word Galleon, and please at least make a singular office for myself and her. We aren't really sociable around many people that could be conscious or intelligent enough to catch our alter egos. You don't have to worry about that. Kids these days aren't so keen to pay attention to those details as long as you don't fight as your alter ego Uruzen, Nezu claimed calmly as our team could only agree to those terms. Making him and Himiko at least be a little safe from that, but other than that, your work here in UA will begin in another 8 months like All Might's, as you're going to be present in the admission exams as a witness in case something bad happens, as I'm aware that sometimes my exams are very dangerous, Nezu proclaiming this as both our teens understood, getting them now to turn to the gate as they were ready to go. But Izuku and Himiko had to stop briefly as they saw a racer besides it. Just to get some things off my neck, glares, try anything on any of the students and I won't hesitate to take you and her to jail by myself, no matter if you aren't exactly guilty, Eraser said as both Izuku and Himiko knew he was going to warn them, but our teen was the only one to put his presence in front of the adult. I do not deny that Eraserhead, but with all due respect, put our matters out of the school grounds instead of here, as I don't want to shame your image in front of them by how different our power levels are, so might as well don't pry into something you are not strong enough to tank out, Izuku said in clear warning as Eraser did nothing more but observe back how our teen and Toga left the lounge, both going immediately to the main gate as they've ignored the multiple curious gazes of the students, mainly for how interesting the two were. But of course, once they were gone, the pros started to argue. Principal, I can't believe that you are going to let a vigilante upon our grounds, and not just one, two in that. Mike reclaimed as he wasn't really happy with that. Not to mention that this two are deadly armed and experienced enough to endanger our students if we act careful, not for nothing he is the feared Uruzen. Snipe shot adding to the soil as he wasn't also happy. Not just that, you've put those two the accord that me and Eraser would accept them as partners of our classes. To be honest, that it's a very risky idea. Vlad adding this as well as he wasn't sure to let a criminal have contact with the students, especially the upcoming first years. All of you have a point indeed, but once again I wouldn't have made the offer if I didn't know who did I deal with in the very first place. Nezu interrupted their argues as All Might kept silent the whole time. I understand he is a vigilante. I understand that he is dangerous and I understand that it's risky to put him on charge of inexperienced students, but as you have heard he doesn't have any intentions to hurt people or anything alike. I know him as much as his father and this is something the two would not do unless there's a very good reason to do so. The principal saying this as he took his seat upon his desk, leaving the pros with many questions. Counting that, who is his father for you? His father was a noble man by the name of Hisashi Midoriya, and in behavior and attitude they are both alike. Young Izuku would not try anything bad on the students no matter what you do and he will only do if provoked. Nezu, the present heard All Might speak, as the man indeed was now serious upon the chimera. What kind of power they have for you to say that they are dangerous? Him asking this as all the pros present agreed to it, looking at Nezu as the principal was left with no choice but to confess. The girl's quirk, its name Transform, and it allows her to change into someone no matter gender or age if she is able to ingest a blood sample for them. The time of transformation depending on how much blood she consumes. The description of the quirk of Himiko gave a little chill to Midnight and number 13, this making the pros know that she is forced to injure someone to use her quirk. And about Izuku, he born with the same powers of his father but in a more powerful scale. How so? Eraser being the one to ask as both him and Midnight were curious of this as they were two of the many pros pursuing them. His quirk, like his father's, it's known as Reaper Flames. This gave an instant chill and shock to the present, as they've recognized the name of the quirk. He is capable of generating lich flames with ease as well as morphin that unbearable heat into and shearing cold that could easily freeze something to its 0 Kelvin. But this power also allows him to heal his wounds and injuries, not to say that he already has a natural superhuman strength that could easily give Endeavor a run for his money. Wait, you said his father, but I only know someone with that quirk and that someone is, Mike stated as now the ambience got cold, getting everyone in dread. That's right my fellow heroes. His father, Hisashi Midoriya, it's none other than the retired number 1 vigilante Exodius, the Grim Reaper, The state of the principal gave a cold shiver to the pros as now they were able to identify the true situation they had in hand, Midnight being a little scared now from it. But the most shocked was All Might, as not only did he found the kid that the Bakugos were searching for, but he also was revealed of that truth that maybe the team present was not eager to release. Why you're telling me that we've just met the #1 Vigilante's offspring and we didn't even knew of it? Ectoplasm asking this as tough as possible, as all the present were keen to what kind of monster in strength Exodius was. Principal, why didn't you say it sooner? Eraserhead demanded in a question as he was now more eager to know this fact. Because if I have told you before, you would have started to ask vain questions about his father's location, this being reasonable yet at the same time intriguing. Vain? Why vain? Vlad King asked as he wasn't really convinced of that response. The pros only got more intrigued as they saw Nezu get a sentimental look on his face as he went to look out in the window, looking at the horizon as he detected our team going away. What comes from my mouth don't dare to reveal it to him unless you want to get fired, understood? Him saying this as the present were even more confused, looking at themselves with a bit of doubt before agreeing to their principal's words. Size. 3 years ago, the Midoriyas went to a little trip at night time, but an assault of unknown thugs ambushed them without any chance for Hisashi to act back. Hisashi Midoriya and Inko Midoriya were found deceased in the forest, all product of an unknown killer. Assault Izuku was left as only survivor. Some of the pros now got into a dreadful expression as this was said with a cold tone, this being a clear answer for them as it was something a kid was not meant to suffer, Midnight being the most dreadful as she understood the situation clearly. Our teen was left orphan as he could presence the murder of his parents, day that Exodius and his wife left the living world as well. Himiko Toga, the girl besides him, it's the only person alive to make him company now, and as a family friend it hurts me to know this, but destiny can be so cruel to some people that just born unfortunate. He isn't a vigilante because his father forced him, he is like this because he got no other choice. I'm not asking you to trust him as I know that he isn't exactly an ally, but as an acknowledge of him at least allow me to guide him into a right path. Him and young Toga have as much potential as all our students, but because of them surrendering school there was no other option than this solution. They need to learn how to accept themselves through the society of youngsters their age as well as they have to learn how to be once again young, as their lives they've been into it's just the cruel reality of adult life. You are dismissed now, go back to your activities and classes everyone, Nezu demanded as he didn't take his gaze of the window, the pros wanting to ask something more but they've only surrendered in going to their duties, leaving All Might with Nezu behind inside the room. Nezu, is it really good for him to go into this? There might be a probability that his past might find him, All Might stated as he was sure that one of the Bakugos was eager to enter Ua, having known that one of them searches for the top of heroism. I'm well aware of it, Toshi, but if he keeps away of it for more time it could only worsen his mental health further. The only way for a teen to become successful is to accept their past, their present, and to define who they want to be in the future. And Izuku it's so concentrated in the future that he is forgetting his past and who he is, Nezu explained as All Might could only stand from his seat, going towards the gate as he was about to leave. Toshi, him just stopping as he heard his name being called. It's not an offer as I know it's mainly your choice, but maybe he could be the one you are searching for, as I'm aware he is selfless enough to put others behind him in for safety. But it's up to you to decide, a successor must be found a part of Mirio. Why are you telling me this, Nezu? Or should I call you Galleon? All Might asking this as he was indeed curious, he couldn't just leave that in hands of someone without knowing if it is worthy. Once as I met you before, the only darkness was him. But I have a hunch that something darker it's on the move, and the power of OFA alone might not be enough to surpass it like it did with AFO 5 years ago. And call me any of the two forms, Toshi. Either way we are friends and I trust you with it. The principal saying this as All Might took in note what he heard, not liking that part as he was aware of the darkness following him. But this darker thing his friend just talked about with a tone of deep worry was enough for him to tell that this darkness was someone or something to be afraid of. Having this on mind as he exited the room, leaving the principal alone as the Chimera was once again left alone, making him safe enough to envelop himself into a demonic aura that subsided. But instead of the Chimera rat shown, It was a large, muscular and armored demon of weird looks that indeed detailed that it was as old as Bergdant, a demon of high class. Izuku, like you I am aware that Mundus has woken up after centuries, and I'm afraid that this time, without Sparta or his offsprings we won't be able to do much unless you unlock your full demon potential, otherwise you would be forced to be helped by humankind. Demons have become stronger than before, and I'm afraid that Mundus might had as well. This time maybe you'll have to do so as well as fast as possible, as powerful demons are coming, and without your full awakening it will be a difficult task to do. My promise is clear upon your grandfather and Sparta, and I will not rest until both you and the last of the Spartans get to your full potential, because without either Dante or Virgil on our side, it will be a massacre upon humankind, and the end of this world by Mundus' Iron Fist. Hosu City Devil's Cove, night time. Izuku's paw. Sighs. Another long couple of months have happened since me and Himiko had to make a visit towards Ua. Out of all the places we were sent to work as part-time workers for other restaurants, seriously what was All Might thinking on publishing our existence to them in the first place? But even so, it wasn't really something to regret actually. After years of life I've met with my Gramp and father's friend Galleon, disguised as the actual principal Nezu from Ua itself, and sure I've got a clear surprise seeing him there. While being surrounded by like 9-10 pro heroes ready to strike me down whenever they had the chance to, but meh. Only All Might was clearly a danger, the rest aren't really a challenge other than Ectoplasm and number 13. Not to mention that I was clearly invited to work at Ua. Basically surrounded by heroes every day and in training heroes, more specifically the fearsome big three of Ua, and trust me, I and Himiko have met the three already a couple of times. The Sasuke ripoff with sociality issues at Green Valley with Fat Gum, the girl with Yuki when once the heroine came to our contact to ask for some meals at Devil's Cove, which of course I make the delivery, having to face her annoying yet cute swarm of questions before getting to deliver successfully the food to them. And of course the last one, we've met him in the worst way possible. Through our vigilante patrolling when Night Eye himself started to hunt us down. Not for nothing the once former partner of the number one hero had to be him. Escaping him it's a challenge indeed, mainly for the young man, as the guy's quirk basically makes him basically untouchable for a period of time. I'm going to be honest, he is a good challenge as a hero, being one of the few only to make me use force upon him to push him back. But other than that, and to mention that demons of course became more present than ever. It was the first time I've faced scarecrows. Those bastards are ugly as hell, but damn. Such blades could have easily made a huge scar if I didn't train correctly, as well as Ravagers, which are clearly like Toxic Chainsaw but more robot-like, a deadly weapon user demon. It's those if you ask about it. Yeah, this story I'll make it full of demons, not to say that in BNHA times the technology it's larger, so expect demons of high tech. Himiko actually got a little injured by one of these guys on her back, but other than that she is safe and healthy. So better keep her in check because these demons are clearly desperate to hunt me down now, because I haven't seen a public attack yet which confirms this theory of mine. But discarding the hunts which helped Himiko become a deadlier hunter like I actually started to get very curious customers in the Green Valley. Lunch Rush came as a critic to the restaurant, making the people go crazy like always with all heroes, which I really don't care to tell, but of course the pressione of a restaurant, it's the typical. A critic, it's a face to fear among food service places, and of course panic was upon the kitchen, but I took the things on my hands and I basically attended Lunch Rush myself. Of course he received me like a friend despite knowing who I was in my alter ego, and I received him like a proper butler and chef, cooking for him with my Midoriya-signed meals that made a reaction of delight upon him once it entered in his taste buds. After such critical event, Lunch Rush gave a good record upon the restaurant and left with a considerable payment, which the boss gave me part of for my bravery to attend a clear pro in cooking like Lunch Rush, which I didn't complain back but I received it anyways. And we were also visited in the Smith of Devil's Cove by Power Loader. That time I actually shrunk a bit because of the pieces of Gilgamesh I had to hide, but other than that he was analyzing our style of smithing, which was received positively by him, and he left the place peacefully, not without a little reward of an invitation at the support section in Ua, which me and Himiko were a bit curious but decided to just make a note of it for a later visit at Ua. At Devil's Cove, we were actually visited more than a couple of times by Galleon and surprisingly Midnight by our bad luck of us. While Himiko had to hide her urges to not attack Midnight like her, me and Galleon actually had more than a couple of trivial chats between us, him talking about his time as his other lifetimes when he separated from my dad once before, me taking note of it as I was well aware that he was a powerful demon general, but of course not as strong as Gramps and Sparta himself. Like all women I've met, Midnight got delighted by the cooking of Devil's Cove, which you already have an idea who's the responsible even if she acted tough on our watch. Getting along with her it's not really an option thanks to our little backstory of hero pursuits, but Galleon indeed praised me, as like my dad, our tact in the cooking it's majestic, something Sparta wasn't keen to it as well as his offsprings especially Redgrave. This months were hell, 8 large months in where me and Himiko had to get ready to be present at UA once again and around crows. Even if we had befriended 3 of them already, it's really a seriously bad idea. But I have no choice now. Although I was accorded to met with All Might and Galleon at Dagoba a night before the event. What could they want now? End Izuku's POV. Musudafu City, Dagoba Beach, nighttime. Third-person POV. We locate ourselves at the beautiful beach of Dagoba, a paradisiac place where couples tend to visit for a view at the sea and enjoy a little time together. Wait, what? I don't remember. This place this clean? A very confused and clearly taken off guard All Might asked as he gazed at the beach, which was supposed to be an illegal dump for years and above the time. But right now it was as clean as a beach meant for vacations, which automatically confused the number 1 pro absolutely. Nezu was besides him not even asking why, as he already knew why, and it was thanks to the work of someone else that already made that job and had the courage to do so, mainly for physical training. Pardon my tardiness, gentlemen. Both pro and principal turned to their backs as they've located our teen, who was now in front of them in casual clothing, but may I perhaps know the situation with you now? Izuku asking this out as he was now in front of the 2, not faced in the slightest by fatigue even if he literally crossed the gap from Hosu to Musudafu by foot. At 1:30 a.m. at night. I appreciate you came today, young Midoriya, All Might spoke with his surname. Something that clearly ticked our teen, as he wasn't used to be called so casually from a pro, this being detected the very moment it was said. I will take that you're not used to me using your surname, but as job partners we have to start doing do. Yeah, that being said by Mr. No One aka you of course. Our teen sarcastically a bit annoyed, as he turned to Nezu, what is the meaning of this call, Galleon? If I remember correctly we are basically hours for the admission exams to start. In that I'm well aware, young Izuku, but here Toshinori and I are not part of the judging table, that only is work for the rest of the staff. Nezu explained as this was just a, do not worry of that right now, from the principal to our teen. Either way I came here actually to tell you something important. And that is, Izuku not wanting to waste more time asked this as he took a look to the 2 adults with clear curiosity upon the matter, fact which made his doubts true as he clearly sent another presence behind him. Lower down your guard, Izuku. He's a friend. Nezu interrupted our teen with a smile as he was like the other adults aware that our teen was about to take out Ivory and point out at the present being just behind him. Being that was by mere presence human, yet our teen could clearly catch that it wasn't a common human to be treated with lightly. It was a young man of black short hair around his 40s, our teen could tell by All Might's gaze that indeed an old friend with a beige jacket and dressings that clearly shouted at him that he belonged to the law itself, more specifically a detective. Meet Naomasa Tsukauchi, a friend in the force and also one of the most respected detectives across Japan. Naomasa, this is Izuku Midoriya, the kid I've spoke to you about, All Might said with a serious gaze as now our teen was gazing upon the young detective, the man also looking at our teen closely. It's nice to finally meet the enigmatic Uruzen in front of my eyes, and I might ask forgiveness upon my friend All Might. By protocol that you are going to be included in UA's school program as tutor, they needed at least a way to cover you up upon your unknown papers, Tsukauchi explained as he looked at All Might, our teen not clearly happy that he wasn't informed of it, yet he could understand why. He was a vigilante, and his papers as Izuku Mikumo were made by his father once they've moved to Hosu, so he was basically living upon Hosu already as a legal adult even if he was just almost as his 16 years old. And even if that didn't look worrying, Toga's background is indeed one to fear, as unlike him she did take some lives before meeting him, making her already a wanted villain for some pro-heroes of the underground like Mr. Mother Worm. so he could clearly understand why the protocol. What kind of questions are you going to make me answer, detective? Izuku asked with a serious demeanor as Tsukauchi also entered into it. All Might and Nezu had informed him of Artine's way of acting upon situations, always straight to the point. Some of them are going to be questions I also wanted to ask you as Uruzen, so would you mind if I do so? Tsukauchi wanting to make that point as he now had in hand his notes, Izuku understanding that maybe he was one of the many that were upon his back, so he nodded in affirmation to him, taking this seriously as a fiscal interrogation. Tsukauchi now ready to ask the questions. First question. Who are you? The first question at first confused Izuku, but he could tell why. My name it's Izuku Midoriya and I was once a former inhabitant of Musudafu before having to move on with my parents to Hosu by an accident provoked at my house, taking the name of Izuku Mikumo for hiding purposes. Enemies of my father, Izuku answered with all honesty as he was aware that the detective in front of him would be cautious upon every kind of answer he gave to him, knowing that they might be intimate and clearly personal to him. Tsukauchi was capable to detect that our teen was hiding something, yet his words were in some way true as he could tell the truth that Exodius was a very feared vigilante thanks to being none other than the number one enemies he could have a plentiful before his decease. What provoked you to enter the life of vigilantism? Tsukauchi entered the second question, which our teen was visibly uncomfortable but he had to answer. My life as the vigilante Uruzen began when an enemy of my father ambushed me and my family in the woods of Hosu 3 years ago. I was left survivor but my parents were found deceased in act. Don't confuse this as revenge, detective. As for me it's an immature act, but this enemy it's someone I cannot simply let pass to strike, as me and my father have a backstory with them, him mainly. And trust me, it would be a massacre if you send common pro heroes to the act of hunting them down, especially him down. Izuku answered with clear care as he knew the demonic realm and his inhabitants was a mystery and just myth to the actual humanity, so confessing about them would be just a bad old prank to the adult. Yet he was truth that he was not searching for revenge. Mundus was someone that had to be stopped or else the world would find its doom. Tsukauchi now had clear curiosity, as thanks to his quirk he could tell it was a very well-planned lie, as the identity of these enemies were false, but the part of not working by revenge and that normal heroes would be endangered if they tried to attack these unknown enemies was actually a truth that now gave the adult more curiosity of our teen and these dangerous villains. He might want to be informed with detail of that someday. Why the name Uruzen? Does it have a meaning on it? Tsukauchi asked this as he was actually as curious as the other adults with them. It sure was an interesting name for a vigilante, especially because it didn't sound a name a normal person would put to itself. This guy, it's getting clearly on my nerves. Izuku was not really comfortable to talk, but he had to or else he would be in trouble. Uruzen, it's a name based on an acknowledge of my father in his young days that means embodiment of conventional reason and law, normally, but this name was used with the meaning of king of justice and order, by that person in some very questionable ways, yet I use nowadays to strike fear upon my enemy and also bring a hope to the innocent. Even if being known it's not my speciality, mainly because of here Mr. Symbol of Peace that already has that job. Izuku answered as now this answer gave curiosity to All Might mainly, as it was clearly a name meant for power, even if the way it was used was questionable as our teen made it seem. Tsukauchi was certain that it was a truth completely. The way our teen used the name meant for someone balanced towards order and justice, not to just only cause fear as our teen made it known thanks to the backstory of it. And that was fueled by how he works as a vigilante. He hadn't taken a life of a villain yet he is prepared if needed, so he protected the innocent even though his appearance described some sort of assassin. He was clearly intrigued of who that once called Uruzen was and what connection had with Exodius. That day might come someday. Why did you recruited Himiko Toga as your helper? You have an idea of what she did, right? Tsukauchi now asked something our teen expected. Himiko's backstory wasn't a pure one and he was aware that she was going to be difficult to be accepted, mainly for the crimes she committed before becoming his huntress partner. I am well aware that Himiko had murdered and that she has her hands stained with innocent blood, yet thanks for asking. I have lived with her long enough to know exactly the cause of why and trust me. It's a very reasonable excuse to admit some discomfort upon the actual society thanks to the ideal looks of a hero and villain. And for your first question, I just offered her the job. Yet she decided to follow and enter into a more respectable life, as a citizen and also as my helper. I gave her the care she was just desperate to find thanks to the social disrespect the people tend to give her thanks to her villain-like quirk she born with. Izuku answered with a little bit of poison in his words as he looked at the adult, as he made clear that indeed he was not denying that Himiko was guilty, yet he gave her a life in which she could connect with society correctly instead of being known as a killer. Now this clearly made the three adults a bit uncomfortable, as they couldn't deny that the actual society tended to be so superficial in all their comments, mainly in the matter of quirks, fact that made people turn to the dark side recently. But the fact that Izuku had the courage and honor to give her a life of a citizen and allow her to make contact with people in a healthy way now made the adults see that our teen was eager to help anyone into a better life. There has not been more cases of murder in Himiko's hands anymore since 3 years, and she was known nowadays as an innocent yet creepy-looking cute girl that helped and worked in Green Valley and Devil's Cove. A citizen in a healthy life. Nezu was proud of Izuku for that, as he knew he had potential of hero work just like Himiko despite her sins. With the correct guidance both of them could be respectable heroes if they wanted. This will be my last question for now, young Midoriya, yet I will ask some others in later days, is that alright? Tsukauchi made the emphasis on the last dialogue as our teen understood. He knew the detective had more questions thanks to the many enigmas he made on his answers, but right now it was basically pretty early in the morning and of course no one has the energy to start a very long day of questions, mainly for the event upcoming hours later. Now, why did your father, the once former #1 vigilante Exodius, the Grim Reaper, retired from vigilantism? Because of me, detective. The three adults were a bit confused of the simple answer, making our teen get a nostalgic look. Sighs. I know, and he did reveal to me his past, his job and who he was once before meeting my mother and marrying her, but both of them promised to each other that once I were born, my father's era would come to an end. Exodius retired from his job and abandoned that poisoned name to be the very best father I could ever have in my life, to live alongside his beloved wife and son and have that life of a normal healthy family. Everything I know, it's thanks to both of them, and their deaths still carve within my soul. There is no day I do not miss them, but I wouldn't be here if it wasn't because of them. I won't protect my father as I know he did a lot of things in his vigilante days. I even have under possession his weapon, which I know it's stained of many heroes and villains' blood. But what was the fearsome Exodius? The Grim Reaper for me was none other than the man that lighted up my days, and I would wait impatiently every day of my life, every night. A man that would be my greatest friend and the only one I would trust, a smile to lighten my days and make them worth living. Exodius, no. Hisashi Midoriya, my dear and beloved father who protected me until his last breath in life. That it's why for me Exodius it's just the past, the unfortunate path. I won't be with him in the future thanks to his death. But when he was alive, the present was a gift I enjoyed deeply, the same message I transmitted to Himiko when she became my foster little sister, and by her eyes a man she might want as husband. Well, that's unique in each person, right? All the words of our teen were given with clear love and care that the adults were able to sense it from kilometers, and it was now the justification of why the actions of Exodius. Every father that loves their children will always strive for the happiness of their offspring, even if it meant changing their own lives, and Hisashi was the proof of that. The once former vigilante retired to be the father the teen in front of them needed, a figure he would respect and love until the end of his days, a sign of full respect, as it meant clearly that he searched for a better life with his family, unlike some others that might had continued on that path despite that. All Might never knew about love thanks to the stress of always being careful about the dangerous AFO, but just hearing the story of a fellow justiciar to search the happiness of his descendant was clear enough to give an inner respect to the vigilante. He might have not met him when he ascended as the #1 hero, yet it was for the best. It would have been unprofessional to attack the guy when Izuku was alive, or else the teen in front of him would have developed an inner hate to heroes in general instead of the sarcastic yet uninterested respect he had upon them. Tsukauchi had no doubt now. Exodius redempted himself with Izuku and the results were positive, so he had no choice to say that indeed Uruzen was a vigilante. But one to be respected, not hated. Was that all? Izuku asked as he returned to his serious gaze, changing the mood of the ambience as he was actually starting to get a bit impatient. Himiko was kind of a rough sleeper, and if he wasn't present for more than an hour she would really come for him by force. For now it is, but I will ask some days later, kid. Tsukauchi said this as he could tell our teen was kind of in a rush. This will be enough to make an acceptable excuse to be included in UA's grounds, yet for now your hero name will have to be chosen by you, as I don't think you want our hands on it. Izuku looked at him with a poker face. I will count that as a yes. Anyways, I'll be seeing you around someday, Toshi. Nezu, young Midoriya. Just Izuku. I'm not used to my surname after a lot of years. Izuku said this with a bit of discomfort as the adults could only agree with him. The Midoriyas were nowadays considered dead, and of course saying it out loud with such mindset said it was really uncomfortable. With that mentioned, the detective left the chat, as now we return to the trio that was now a bit silent. Izuku, have you perhaps cleaned Dagoba Beach while we weren't observing? Me and my father did for my physical training years ago, as well as to teach me how to smith and repair machinery. Why do you think Devil's Cove it's considered the best smith around Hosu? All Might was left shocked as Izuku revealed such detail, Nezu laughing his ass off as he knew Vermilion was someone quick to act. With so much trash in Dagoba it was a good place to train physically, mainly if smithing was a cause, as it was a dump full of a lot of things, mainly unused and even destroyed machinery. No wonder why the notice of a clean Dagoba beach was mentioned in the local news somehow. Uwa Academy front grounds, main entrance. This is such a bad idea. Both Himiko and Izuku thought with poker faces as they were now around the school grounds, being now dressed as clearly heroes in training, which clearly displeased the two as they were the attention of a lot of teens coming to the exams. Himiko's costume made her attributes be more visible as a young girl in young beauty, yet it didn't lose the tact of her technique and skill on knife tactics, as well as a mouth mask that still conserved kind of a vampire looks, yet it was less intimidant if the heroes could call it just the mouth mask. The suit, it's the image above the mask one. I hope you enjoy. But in the case of Izuku, he was clearly dressing clothing out of his likings, completely, not just the fact that it was kind of inspired by All Might but in green, and not to say that his mask was almost the looks of a rabbit paired up with steroids, and clearly his mind was plagued on making a serious interview with Nezu about it. He basically looked dull. Imagine him with the suit on and with heat and cold resistance, as well as the mask we know. Hope you enjoy. I look stupid in this, our teen thought, clearly frustrated as he held the tip of his nose with frustration. No time in his life he felt so annoyed and frustrated upon his looks. He could tell for many it was cool, but for him it was just horrible, out of his comfortable suit as Uruzen. Sure, he wouldn't mind the looks, but he was, like Himiko, the main source of attention of all the teens present that looked at them, either interested, intrigued, curious, and of course confused, as they were new faces. Whoa, and it didn't help that our teen had to act quick to catch the fall of a girl that tripped on her foot. Himiko also seeing this as our teen basically dashed from besides her to the girl that just tripped and almost fell. You okay, young girl? Our teen, knowing he had to act professional, asked with concern in his tone, as he looked at the girl he just caught. She was a brunette of baby face and two little circles in both her cheeks that resembled blushes, even if the girl was already doing so, not to say she was dressed in a brown jacket that covered her top. Something tells me she's very innocent. Blushing, too. Okay, thanks. The girl said, now recovering from the fall. By the way, who are you? Her asking, clearly curious as she now observed our teen's looks. Dull poker face, and what I wanted to dodge. Great. Our teen saying to himself sarcastically as he knew he was going to be asked. I'm just a local new hero that just appeared recently. My name has not any meaning yet to be your curiosity, young girl. Our teen answered as this now gave an oh to all the present, Himiko also being in the same status as she also started her dressings. Unlike Izuku, her not minding them at all, but ignoring mine. What's yours if you let me the honor? Him now asking this as the girl was kind of touched by his words, getting a bit more nervous. I'm Ochako Uraraka, sir. I must go. The exam, it's in minutes. Before she could have ended her words, someone bumped into her back, making our teen catch her as both him and Himiko were now capable of seeing the responsible. Out of my way, extra. Stop making unnecessary shit and move, a certain ash-blonde boy said as he marched to the insides of the place, ignoring the glare of Himiko as she was clearly pissed of that. Size, same old behavior of yours I see, Kachan, don't mind him. Youngsters of your age tend to be sometimes very prideful of themselves. Our teen saying this to comfort the girl as Uraraka could only develop a light blush before bowing in respect and going on, leaving the drama out as the rest of teens went in the building. Whispers, may I stab the Bomberman? Whispers, what did I say about the stabs, Himiko? Our teen answered her with a stoic question as the girl could only, tch, not happy about it. Our teen understanding that she hated guys like Katsuki, but both of them had to reunite with the pros for the exam, mainly because they were, like Uraraka said, about to begin. PM. Everybody, I want to hear, and hey. Deep silence, my brothers. ... Seriously. Our teen could only observe with a poker face at the screen as he was now besides Himiko at the lounge where all teachers are spectators of the exams. And like before, both our teens are clearly surrounded by the staff of UA, being just protected by All Might and Nezu, as they were sitting besides them. Izuku wasn't a fool to not sense the clear daggers Midnight was sending to both of them, daggers clearly out interestingly jealousy, as he could tell the pro-heroine was keen to take seat next to the principal itself, place of course he took. Not to say both Himiko and him were absolutely squashed to see the ginormous amount of students that were eager to become heroes in UA, catching glimpses of hundreds of them with quite a variety of quirks that clearly surpassed his own eyesight, of course noticing both Ochako and Katsuki amongst the crowd within the large room. And it didn't help that present Mike was doing unnecessary drama in such a situation full of concentration and stress. The rules of the practical exams were simple. Defeat robots which pointers went up from 1 to 3 and score the highest, which our teen and Himiko could count as combat points thanks to that. And like they've expected, one student opened its mouth earlier than needed, making such a childish fuss for something that was yet to be explained. That guy needs chill pills. Himiko, thinking this as she only retorted on eating a little snack while the explanation of what the student was making a tantrum of said, our teen just taking note that it was basically an imponent robot of great challenge, yet not worth in points at all. PM. That's all I got for you today. I'll sign off with a little present, a sample of our school motto. As General Napoleon Bonaparte once laid down, a true hero is one who overcomes life's misfortunes, go beyond, plus ultra. Plus ultra. At least something worth of the pre-quirk era, Izuku thought with a bit of attention upon the students as he was just looking at the screens with clear boredom, leaning back on the seat as it wasn't his style getting things done like a game, of course this not being the liking of the pros as they saw him uninterested, but thanks to Nezu's warnings, they could only stay quiet or else they would have a pretty bad reward from it. Whispers, plus eating chocolate bar, aren't you entertained yet? Whispers, do I tell you the truth or do I have to act entertained? Izuku answered Himiko's question with a poker face as the girl could just sit back on her seat, knowing it wasn't really his entertainment being a spectator of the chaos just at the place right now. The practical exam already began and clearly the destruction of many robots also, as well as the show-off of many quirks in battle. Izuku won't deny it, but he does take a look upon some interesting quirks he already caught eyes on, analyzing all of them as he was sure not capable of taking note of them by hand thanks to being Coughs X2 in hero territory. One basically had multiple arms that could change into ears, basically for recognition, the one that made the fuss having one that resembled Ingenium actually. Our team could tell it was Ingenium's younger brother, another one that just had a doofus look upon its face yet capable of generating a light beam strong enough to destroy the robots, yet he could tell it had a pretty unpleasant backlash. And of course the pure instinct of combat of Katsuki, who was basically going full Muslim upon the robots, exploding them to oblivion and beyond with such deadly elegance that he could tell it was far from heroism, but Izuku wasn't really someone to care about it. But he did caught a glimpse on something interesting which Himiko did not. A part of Ochako's apparent quirk to make things float, nothing out of normality. There was another girl at the test that caught his attention. Are those a gladius and a basilisk? He could tell Nezu had the same question, as it was a girl also brunette, yet she was able to summon two demons that our teen was sure were from the Order of the Sword, two of the artificial ones, and used the two as both a large blade and a cannon shooter, not to say her speed and technique was still dull yet deadly. She also resembles and looks like. Well, how about we get this to its final state then? Nezu interrupted his thoughts as he later took note of a large red button on the console, pressing it as our teen could only see this one way as he also prepared to act. Something tells me this isn't going to end pretty. At the exam grounds. Rumbles. W.O. Ochako squeaked a bit as she could feel a large tremor shake the place, making her and the rest of the students look up to see a clearly large robot of the size of a building. And like all humans, the sight of it made the rest flee the place, Ochako also trying so but. Arg, she grunted loudly as she felt her foot trip with a rubble on the pavement, making her trip and make her at the disposal for a rubble to press upon her legs, negating her movements. This as the robot came closer second by second. Come on, come on. She kept chanting that to herself as she tried to free herself up from the rubble, the robot closing in, not really making the ambience one to think throughly. The situation of course was making her desperate, as the large zero-pointer was just less than a mile near her, Ochako starting to already give up as she was too dizzy to use her quirk once again on something. Rock movement plus grunts, but like every angel, Ochako felt the pressure of the large piece of rubble abandon her legs, as she caught glimpse of another brunette with ponytail, lifting it up with surprising. Come on, are you going to stand there or move? The girl exclaimed as she pushed away the rubble, making Ochako react and try to stand, which of course didn't work as her ankle was injured, squeaking in clear pain. Sighs. Goddammit, hang on tight, the girl said as she carried Ochako on her back like a sack of potatoes and started to sprint out of the zero-pointer's path, which was already on their talons. Gladius. Distract it out, the girl exclaimed as from her body, a demon became solid, one that looked like some sort of turkey with wings made out of blades, as well as it released a blue aura. The sight of it clearly intrigued Ochako. The winged demon flew over the skies and started to confuse the large robot, making it turn its attention towards it, which left the girls run for safety and out of the way the enough time possible for the clock to chime. But just before the clock gave 0, and not to say that the Gladius was unsummoned after a couple of seconds. Basilisk. Blast it off, the girl commanded as another demon was summoned, this time being a dog-hound kind of creature of also bluish aura. Yet its skull-looking head is basically meant to be a cannonball, which follows no logic at all in living beings. With a loud howl, Basilisk shooted 3 rounds that impacted on the zero-pointer's large fist, destroying it at the process as the robot retaliated back from the impact. Time's over. Just in time for Mike to end the exam as the robot automatically deactivated, Basilisk returning to the girl's own aura as she could only admire the damage it caused before leaving Ochako in safety parts. Woo-wee, now that was one of a kind explosion Basil made until now, huh? The girl thought as she later turned to Ochako, who was clearly looking at her curious. You ite, her asking this to her. HHI, Ochako answered back as now they've noticed the rest coming closer to them, the other brunette just sighing with clear frustration. Better get you treated on your ankle, girl, because with that you would not be able to move around for a while, the girl said as she started to ignore the words of the other students that clearly started to praise her for her interesting powers to summon creatures. Yet she was more concentrated on something she felt, as well as her demon partners. A demon. No joke. She has the looks of Kyrie and the blood of Sparta, our teen thought as he was on top of a building as he was observing the girl from the top of it, the girl being visibly aware that she was being observed, yet our teen was trained enough to hide his demonic presence from high-tier demons. Is she maybe your descendant? Nero. Izuku's Pav. A couple of weeks have passed after that crazy-ass entrance exam, which both me and Himiko could only agree that Galleon's actual body was full of a psycho mindset to program such dangerous robots for the entrance exams. I couldn't deny that being heroes was tough. But that almost took a life of a girl if it wasn't because of her. Those two she summoned and also her very own presence, there was no doubt that she was none other than a descendant of Sparta. More specifically Nero, grandson of the mentioned, obvious that his wife was Kyrie herself. But that didn't confirm to me that he was either alive or dead, on the contrary, it gave me only more questions. Her powers were low in comparison to a normal hybrid, which I can tell it's thanks due to the majority of human DNA in her blood, but with enough trainer she could really be a helpful demon hunter like once her grandfather and great-gramps if she were to unlock a devil trigger successfully. Why do I know of the devil trigger, may you ask? Well, once before when my dad trained me, he once used to tell me stories of Tony Redgrave Dante, and how him and his brother Virgil were able to unlock the magnificent demonic powers within themselves, also freeing up the inner demons in them with the astonishing Sin Devil trigger, becoming as dangerous as a demon lord that just born. Not to deny they were already powerful to defy Mundus and more. Nero was also capable of unlocking his devil trigger after both his uncle and father faded into the underworld, but there was no record that told something about him waking up his own Sin DT. After all, demons became less common after that affair in Redgrave centuries ago. I know that demons have longer lifespan than a human, but Nero was a quarter demon, which means that he wouldn't have lived for that many years as a full-fledged demon would, not to say that Kyrie, thanks to being human, was first to abandon the living realm. But scratching out that and returning to the main point. After the exam ended, Galleon allowed me and Himiko to leave the school to continue our work at the Devil's Cove, not of course before eavesdropping the fact that Midnight would come for a pleasant dinner with us, despite knowing our vigilante status. But other than that, it was pleasant to know that we weren't bothered by those guys anymore, but as good things came, also more annoying pests came to the light for us. Not only the fact that we had to deal with multiple swarms of demons every night of patrol, and most of the demons weren't just easy lesser types such as the Queen Impusa, but also because it seems our fame triggered the higher tier pros to get under our feet. Mirko was one of them, and boy, chuckles asterisk, you don't want to mess with her. Not for nothing she was the top 6th hero in Japan and also the strongest heroine around the country. Her quirk, Bunny, was seemingly cute. But trust me, one kick from her abnormally strong legs without protection and say goodbye to your career. Just blocking it with Aussie pushed me like 7 meters back at a wall with a loud thud, not to say my arms were sore for like 2 weeks yet not broken enough to disturb my career. Yeah, you could say getting rid of her was easy, but a top pro was a top thanks to their disturbing yet admirable persistence to pursue, not getting them lost of your sight until we basically had to do the cartoonish hiding spot while basically holding our breath until she faded away long enough for us to retreat silently and run, and it was the challenge of a lifetime as thanks to her quirk and training. The smallest sound was enough to catch us, but what I did learn from what I saw sometimes from Edgeshot, it's that your best friend in critical cases it's silence, silent as the wind that carries and circles around. Mirko is indeed a challenge, yet the one that was more of a sore and basically the Achilles heel for both of us that he even reached the point of being an eyesore was none other than the other nightmare of the villains and vigilantes alike. The one below in spot from All Might and the hero with most cases resolved in his entire career. The number 2 hero of Japan, Endeavor. Seriously, such a prideful piece of a human torch with no care at all of the society, to think that it is that bastard who will now be on our tails. Thanks to my demon breed and natural-born powers, I was completely immune to flames of all kinds, including his. But that wasn't the case with Himiko. There are many times and situations in where I can really tell and be infuriated with him in all honesty, mainly thanks to him being an absolute stubborn man, that he almost literally scorched her to a crisp, those times Himiko being grateful that she was able to dodge the strike or else heavy burns would be marked on her body. It's most likely to say that the guy didn't care to give us 3rd-degree burns in order to give us to the police, which it's clearly an abuse of power. But thanks to his almighty of hero work, he can do whatever he can if it is for the sake of putting a villain into jail. Seriously, one of these days I won't care if Galleon warned me, but I'll punch and beat his ass up until he bleeds from the many times I had to check and put Himiko under recovery, because this guy had already gone too far in my nerves. But discounting all that shit I've just shared to fill my paw, it was now the present and I was invited by Power Loader to check up upon the development studio in Ua, which I couldn't really decline but at the same time brought up my curiosity. This as I put Himiko in charge of the Devil's Cove as I went to the place, using civilian clothes alongside carrying the special gate card so I wouldn't cause commotion upon the school from trying to enter without authorization. Sometimes I ask myself what is the meaning of my own life other than understanding the legendary meaning of boredom over patience. End POV. Ua Academy 10:45 a.m. Musudafu City. We locate ourselves now at the entrance of the school itself that was nowadays to become the new job for our teen and his partner, the mentioned teen being now at the halls of the place as he could catch the silence of the vacational period before the re-entrance and entrance of the new students. Our young hunter knew that Katsuki was a total success in the exam, as he could tell his points were above any other of the participants, yet that girl wasn't so behind at it by how Nezu commented to him, having also a bit of rescue points, which were points based on heroic acts such as saving someone from danger, which at least made him proud to say that Galleon took those points into consideration, as many teens are so inflated on becoming the best without any heroic intentions. But scratching that, after minutes walking along the silent halls, Izuku finally reached the place where he was meant to meet up with the digging hero, locating the large door which name was easy to be described in red. Development Studio. Well shit, our teen thought with a blank, stoic expression as he neared the door enough to knock on it with a few taps, getting him to back up as he waited for a response. After a couple of minutes, the door slides open and a figure stood in front of our teen. Seems you've heard my call. The now to be shown as Power Loader, the digging hero, said with a bit of a serious yet kind tone as he looked at our teen closely. A polite invitation cannot be denied after such kind call, Loader. I may be a lawbreaker, but that doesn't mean that I don't respect everyone, our teen answered back with a mature tone to the pro. That I can see it very well. Steps aside, come in. I want to discuss this matter as soon as possible, the pro said as Izuku entered the room with a low bow as the pro closed the door from behind, allowing the young hunter to look at the insides of the place as he could find multiple tables filled with gadgets, tools and many other materials that were clearly used for the construction of support items that our teen can relate to hero stuff. This is tidier than I thought it would be, our teen said with an honest surprise as indeed the room was tidy, almost as if there was no sign of a recent work done. Rubs back with arm. Well, right now there aren't any students thanks to the vacational period, but once it starts I assure you that this tidy room will be a thing of the past. No shit, Izuku thought with clear understanding as he knew that a school like UA would be one filled with all kinds of young students, some being tidy and neat, while others could be a clear pain in the noggin. As a smith, it was clear that our teen was a bit bewildered of the high-tech of the place, but right now he had no authority to move anything without knowing what will it do a part of the common tools inside a smith, so he preferred to just follow the kink until the chat was done, so he could continue upon preparing himself for the annoying job of being a teacher, a thing he could relate the feeling with Eraserhead nicely. Now you may be asking, why I called you here, right? Loader took our teen's attention as now the two were facing each other with serious gazes, knowing the situation at hand. Izuku nodded with clear honesty as he was actually curious of why his presence was needed at the place right before the entrance of the new students at the test. Well, the thing is that I've been wondering about how good of a smith you were, and believe me, I won't deny and make false that the work you did on both your guns and that shotgun are sick and awesome masterpieces. But now that you're going to be part of the UA staff like your vampiric partner, I want to see by myself of what are you capable of in all kinds of cases, the pro explained as he made no offense on our teen's work, Izuku getting the explanation fair as he knew that he needed to gain the trust of the staff in order to have a healthy communication with the students and teachers alike. What kind of cases are you implying, Loader? Our teen asked, getting the idea as he wanted to know the challenge. Thanks for asking, Power Loader said now with a smile as he went to one of the tables and grabbed blueprints for 5 different gadgets that he later delivered to our teen, separating them properly for each case and used to make it easier for our teen to read them. What I gave you are the blueprints of 5 different items I want you to build here, me as the referee, as I will make a grade upon them and see your technique on them. Izuku listened as he read the blueprints, getting the plans to build this 5 objects. 1. Capture strings of carbonite polymerum. 2. High-resistant handcuffs with automatic wrist pressure. 3. Hydraulic jack with automatic movement. 4. Combat bow staff of carbonite steel alloy, with retractable pistons at each side. 5. Advanced flying gear wear with titanium alloy and comfort made. Visibly surprised, this is really a challenge, huh? Izuku thought, clearly surprised of what the pro was asking for, seeing that the last 2 were meant for combat, something he had experience, but it will be a challenge indeed. Ready to begin? Loader asked with a kind yet serious tone as our young hunter looked at him, at first a bit in thought, but a competitive smile was shown afterwards as he looked at the pro, who knew already the answer. You don't have to tell me twice. And with that, the building of the 5 things started as the pro allowed our team to grab anything he wanted to take to build the required items, Izuku retorting to use that as he knew his gadgets were far from normal, mainly because of their mother alloyment. After 30 minutes, surprisingly, Izuku ended the capture strings, him getting to test them with a dummy the pro provided. him turning to be shocked and surprised to see the newly built gadget to be successful and restrain the fake villain in place, which gave him the first score as he led a 5-minute rest for the next one. An hour later, the handcuffs requested were finished by our team, the pro looking rather impressed as the handcuffs really looked tough to hold a bulldozer. And it did. Loader was basically handcuffed for 5 minutes as our team played with him as he held the special key he made for it, the pro not really taking the prank nicely, but he let it be as he knew the intention was just humor, allowing him to continue on the third gadget. After another hour, the requested hydraulic jack was brought to life by our teen as Loader used many weights of different quantities as our teen used a controller to manipulate the jack, turning to be by the surprise of Loader another success as the jack was even able to hold upon 2 tons of weight successfully, making him awestruck as the teen in front of him was surpassing his expectations. Maybe it wasn't a regretful choice to do so. The fourth one was a little longer than 2 hours as Loader expected, but the result intrigued him as the bow staff looked clearly advanced, making him expect the incoming thing to come. For his surprise, he saw how our team started to manipulate the staff like a clear pro in combat, making many moves of combat as he also showed the retractable pistons in action. From stabs to swings, slams to upper blows and even devastating combos upon the smashed dummy, the staff proved to be a durable weapon, making short work of the dummy as our team looked at the pro who was bewildered by the result with sparkles in his eyes. This is definitely more than I ever expected. So worth to do this. The pro thought as he gave the score to it, being excited to see what our team was capable of with the level of Smith's skills Izuku possessed, Izuku only retorting in taking the design of the gadget mentally for a new addition, a more deadlier addition to Toga's devil arms. The last one was the most difficult as Loader could see, taking a considerable 4 hours to do so as it was clearly a piece of art that had no compare. To say the clear inspiration of the gadget was detectable as Izuku didn't have many ideas to come with that doesn't look like demon-made armory. It was a jetpack that possessed exo attachments that could actually hide the wings under the armored alloy that composed the equipment, being based in a comfy yet skin-tight top that had some harness to keep the equipment in place. I could say that he made it hero-looking in order to not get a bad eye, but of course Loader thought this cleverly as he knew the kind of vigilante that both Exodius and Izuku aka Uruzen were, both having a scary demonic-themed equipment and attitudes that did not look like anything heroic at all. Most likely like a once called Tony Redgrave demon hunter in the pre-Quirk era that caught both his and Midnight's eyes in some untold history books they've found in Venice not long ago thanks to a little interswap of heroes that occurred before the entrance exams. I feel stupid doing it like this. But I cannot simply make a Lucifer ripoff, even that thing didn't work for flying and Dante only used it for a period of time like Rudra and Agni, the pesky annoying talking swords as he called them. Izuku thought as he recalled once hearing of that from his father and the little pedia that he gave him on his 9th birthday, which it's a book like Bayonetta's of those knowing that the hunter indeed had quite a variety of devil arms at his disposal. Yet Rebellion, which turned into Devil's Sword Dante, Coyote A and Ivory and Ebony were the ones that never left his hands no matter the place or event. Taking note of the last piece of equipment requested, Loader was now in a clear show of what our teen was capable of. In all my years, I have never seen such talented teen of his age to possess quite the experience without any quirk of the sort. If he was a student he would not only be accepted in the hero course. But I rather accept him fully in the support department, the pro thought with an astonished and excited demeanor as he was in front of a talented kid with many things in future. But it was sad to see that the past he once had and the seemingly unique situation he was in was a denial for a normal life of a student, forcing himself to grow up immediately into the reality of the world and laws, including the underworld of villains. But the pro decided to stop those thoughts as he ended checking the scores and giving a final verdict to the situation at hand. To be honest with you kid, I'm jealous that your talent is unused properly, Loader said as he showed the score, our team being a bit surprised as it was an absolute A+ on the test, but what can I say? A great artist can come from anywhere and we might not be able to find them unless we search a needle between a box filled with straw. I'm flattered of your analysis power Loader, checks clock, but I rather return once again to my job. Hamiko tends to be quite impatient if I'm out for more than 10 hours, Izuku said as Loader got to look at his own watch and saw that it was indeed around 6:57 p.m., being surprised of how fast time came to an end. Then I won't be taking more of your time then young Midoriya, From what I heard from the principal, your schedule it's quite filled of customers since the late evening. Loader said no more as he guided our team to the entrance of the development studio, him staying back as our team was now outside of the room. Remember the new students will start the year this next week, so don't be late. Aizawa-kun it's not a patient guy. Sweat drops, I know that way too well from my vigilante shifts. Loader waves hand, but until then, later. Our team ended the talk as he now went towards the Devil's Cove, leaving Loader alone as now our team was going full sprint towards the UA gate, knowing that he was getting late. Sighs, Hamiko it's so going to cut me various times for being this late, me. Who is the owner of the bar restaurant? This shit will be tough indeed. Time skip. UA Academy, start of classes near 1A lounge. Oh damn. This place it's a freaking labyrinth. A feminine voice thought with a bit of despair as she was clearly getting lost from the very large and long halls of UA, her being now into the UA uniform as it was clear that she was a student, a new entry student. By the brown hair, a slight strand and tips of albino hair, this girl was none other than the girl our teen saw at the UA entrance exam, her being kind of the delinquent kind as her attire wasn't as neat as a normal UA student would be having. Mainly because of the lack of the necktie and the open jacket, not to say she had long-sleeved socks that covered until the knee, blue with white sneakers, and below the skirt was a skin-tight sport shorts. Probably foreseeing that like any other school, a pervert wouldn't be an exception inside a classroom. Imagine her with the UA uniform in the descriptions of maid. Hope you enjoy. But one thing was noticeable on her neck, a necklace that once belonged to her grandmother and that she had also a tattoo marked on her neck with a symbol that belonged to her grandfather, an specific order of knights in which he enrolled in his younger days. Her height was quite average of any normal girl in Japan, as well as her physical assets were also standard, which was not to denigrate but neither presume, being an attractive girl despite looking so delinquent that at the first sight from some other students she was already catalogued that way, her not caring in the slightest. After some more running through the halls, she finally caught sight of a door that she was presumptively looking for, her hitting the brakes comically as she later leapt in front of it to contemplate. Visibly confused, was it necessary to be this big? Shrugged shoulders in surrender, oh well, maybe some big-ass guy might be a classmate by any chance. The girl thought in surrender as she later started to slide the door open, getting the sight of something rather interesting. Oi, put your feet off the desk. We see a rather tall, blue-haired teen with glasses chopping the air as it was making a scolding to a certain hot-headed ash-blonde-haired teen that was basically sitting on the desk as if it was his own home, not caring a shit of whatever happens around him. Yet the call of the teen grabbed his attention. What the FK do you want, Four Eyes? Who are you and from what school you come from for being such annoyance? Him answering back with a light annoyed grin as he now looked back at the other teen. You all already know who he is, so we better skip that. A bit taken aback, URK. I'm Iida Tenya and I came from the prestigious private school of Some Junior High. The guy presented himself now as the Sonic Su coughs as Iida Tenya, a student of a former and wrecked education. Huh, Some, so you an elite of those. Good, 'cause I have a good reason then to crush you out of the way. Bakugo warned out with a grin similar to being comic evil as the other teen was taken aback from this. Intimidated, see, crush me. Do you even hear your words? And do you really want to become a hero with such attitude? The teen asked, not really getting the behavior of our angry Pomeranian to be a good one, the mention just scoffing out a bit annoyed as he was visibly expressing on his face. But right after this, they've caught now sight of the girl on the door. Blank gaze, great, already with some annoying guys, the girl said to herself as she found herself not convinced now of having a peaceful class environment. A bit in realization, hey, aren't you? Iida stopped his words as his call made the rest of the now present class to now have the attention on her, the girl flinching a bit uncomfortable. Sarcastically, thanks for already exposing me, idiot. Wanting to say this out loud, but of course she needed to act polite, so she wouldn't think on having a bad impression of her character towards the others, if her dressing weren't already enough for some of them. But much to her annoyance, the boy was going towards her. Hi, my name is Iida Tenya and I. Puts palm up in sign to stop plus blank stare, please stop right there. I've already heard enough, so no need to present yourself twice, her answering back as the boy stopped as he realized that he had annoyed her. Bowing in 90 degrees, my bad then. Tick mark, would you please stop it, Iida? Her starting to lose her strides as she was seeing this completely unnecessary and annoying, not to say that ridiculous to some point, as she demanded with the boy's surname. Yeep, another delinquent, this giving the vibes for the rest of the class except Katsuki and a bi-colored-haired teen of her status, Tenya having a gloomy aura as he gave a negative impression to the new entry. From behind the door, hey, it's you, the girl with the weird beasts. Tick mark X2+ visibly annoyed, oh for crying out loud. The girl was literally to the point of wanting to shut someone up with a fist as she turned to her back, her expression changing to one of calmness as she saw now in front of her the brunette girl that she saved at the entrance exams, the bubbly girl, huh. Bubbling in excitement, the teacher was right. You did pass the exam, and not only that but a second in the top list. The girl said with clear excitement as she was doing hand motions of said emotion, yet what she said seemed to click on the others. Oh yeah, I forgot that she was at the top second. Really? This is interesting. No way. Her. At least it's proudful to have the girl in the tops. Eyelash tick, and now more attention. Thanks bubbly girl. The girl thought with an annoyed expression as her plan wasn't to stand out so soon, yet it was inevitable so she had to surrender the fact. But this fact was heard by Katsuki, who had now clear interest. So this gal, it's a tough one. Grins, then I must show who is the strongest here. Nay, do you know how our classes are going to be? Or rather who will be our homeroom teacher? I'm so nervous, the brunette said with clear excitement as she was ignoring the fact that the girl in front of her was getting more annoyed at every word spelled. But her senses tingled as she sensed something quite familiar. Serious, that aura. Don't tell me that. Would you cut it out with your rambling? The three at the door and the rest of the class flinched a bit when they've heard a certain tired older voice come from behind the door, the brunette turning her gaze back in a robot style of fear as she was not expecting a new presence appear out of nowhere. Same for the other students as they've also turned to the door, some with curiosity or some others with rather intrigue or even not caring at all. What they saw was something. No, someone inside a bright yellow sleeping bag looking at them with eyes of someone that by the eyes of the girl seemed that he consumed cocaine to stay alive. Tired tone, it took you all around 8 seconds to look at me after hearing me, with such low time you would already be liabilities in the job. What is that? Some of the students asked themselves with clearly scared faces as they looked at the man, while the girl was like blank stare, since when this school admitted hobos on the grounds. Welcome to UA kids, the man said as he took out a juice box from the bag and slurped it, the teens now even more confused. Since when a lied-down hobo man was a formal greeting? The girl only having more questions as she was eager to just go out and forget the class and make a teacher take out the hobo in front of them out of UA. Her eyes not changing much as the man now stood from the ground and unzipped the bag, revealing him wearing dark clothes with a weird scarf on his neck. For those who are asking, I'm Aizawa Shota and I'm your homeroom teacher. Most of the students exclaimed in their minds, not believing those words, but the girl finally got the courage to lift her hand as she had a poker face, taking their and Aizawa's attention. Yes, Aizawa allowing her to talk. Poker face, can I protest of this? Because my teacher, it's a hobo, her saying without any filter as the students got white of what she implied, not to say Katsuki had to muffle a laugh from that comment. Tick mark, straight to the point huh. Aizawa was not going to deny that he was insulted from that comment, but he decided to go on and take out a PE uniform from the bag where he was earlier, taking the attention again. Take this PE uniforms and meet me at the PE grounds in 20 minutes, or else. Hi sensei. Hi. The students and the girl agreed immediately as they took their own PEs and went to the changing rooms, Aizawa going ahead to the PE grounds as he was expecting a rather someone to appear. PE grounds UA Academy. Took you long enough, Aizawa said with a tired, yet tense tone of voice as he was now arriving at the grounds, him talking to our teen who was now at the grounds, waiting for him as the pro wasn't pleased of his delayed presence. I thought you would do something rather more interesting than just the meeting at the auditorium back there with the others, so I kind of expected you here, Eraser, our teen said with a stoic demeanor as he was dressed in his hero suit, knowing the type of man Aizawa was to not care about the formal events of the school. Another time you don't present on the time accorded and I'm sure to give in the slight tolerance I have with you Uruzen. Aizawa answered this coldly as he went to his position, ignoring our teen as he could shrug off the warning, already expecting it as him and Aizawa didn't have a good relationship at all. But just as this happened, his senses tingled out as he went with Aizawa, starting to catch the gaze of multiple figures at the other side of the grounds as it turned to be for our teen's perspective the class that he was going to aid in teaching. Already catching acknowledged faces in the crowd. It seems I'm taking care of your great-great-grand dog there, huh, Sparta? Our teen thinking this as he noted the girl at the back with her PE uniform on as she was walking in a way that acted as she was not really caring into friendship, despite being alongside the brunette that she saved. But just as he had eyes on her, she also caught his gaze, also getting cautious as our young hunter can tell that she felt his demon aura. And just like her, the rest also caught eye on him, some now more intrigued as they were seeing someone of almost their age in a hero suit, Aizawa noting this as he sighed in defeat. I know you have some questions about this man besides me, but let me just give a light draft, points at Izuku, this is Jadius, a hero. A slight tone of poison of those words that the teens didn't catch except our teen who was no fool to detect it. That just recently entered the job, and he will be my assistant and watcher of you kids. Him ending the draft as Izuku couldn't ask more, not wanting to explain more as the teens just gazed and checked upon him fairly. Wow, he does looks kind of heroic and young, the majority of the students thinking this as they've set their eyes on Izuku. But three had different thoughts from the rest out of curiosity. He seems almost our age to begin with, the bicolored teen thought to himself as he detected the physical aspects of Midoriya, knowing he wasn't a full-fledged yet. Why does he feel familiar? Katsuki thinking this in complete confusion and curiosity as he didn't feel with the intention to insult him, as his body was telling him that he knew him from somewhere but he needed to start the circuit to recover that memory. Not only he looks young, suspicious look, but I can clearly sense demonic aura from him. One that it's making me calm both Basil and Glady down at this moment. The girl clearly having her suspicions as she's sent our teen's demonic breed, feeling herself in a bit of danger yet not the type to worry. I can sense both her Gladius and her Basilisk going ballistic on attacking me, Izuku thought in unison as he clearly sensed the inner aura of the girl, knowing she was doing what she could to not make her summons go wild. A physical test. Their thoughts were interrupted as the brunette exclaimed displeased of what she heard from Aizawa, who wanted to do a mock physical test on the students, but that's unfair. From earthquakes, tsunamis, villains and more. Life it's unfair, and critiquing about it won't change it even if you wanted. Aizawa answering back with no care as he knew this reaction was going to happen, not wanting to make a scolding about it. Not to say demons appearing out of the blue and a possible treat beyond your imagination waking up from its slumber sleep. Our teen saying this in addition in his mind as he knew Mundus was coming, the problem was when. But what about the school presentation? Aren't we attending that? Another student asked not happy as it knew of this event ongoing. This is a kid, a hero school. Don't expect to be life-free being here. This time our teen answering back as Aizawa was interrupted. Yet he didn't talk back as it was what he planned to say to the students, which seemed to take it a bit unhappily. This kind of tests were quite common in your younger days, so you know already what kind of activities we'll be doing. Yet the laws are unfair and before the usage of our quirks was neglected in this kind of tests, it's foolish as we cannot have a proper backstory upon your skills. Here we're going to test that, Aizawa said as he later looked at Bakugo, taking out a little baseball from his pockets. Bakugo, you were the one with the highest score in the entrance exams. Calling him out as the mention got his attention taken. What was your best score in throwing the ball? 72 meters. The mention saying this uninterested as Izuku could only be satisfied that his little bratty step-brother didn't slack off on his skills with some undetected satisfied nods. The moment he said this, Aizawa threw the ball to him, Katsuki catching it, then do it again, this time with your quirk. Go to the circle and do as you like to throw the ball, just don't go out of it, Aizawa ordered out without any care as the mention went to the circle, doing some stretch-ups as he prepared himself. I'll just blast it off with my quirk, Katsuki thought with a calm expression as he later entered in position. To launch, shine, him exclaiming this as a battle roar as he swinged his arm, blasting off the ball with a powerful explosion that made it disappear into the far distance, the show of strength getting most of the other students shocked. But not the girl as she had a mental doubt. Shine, poker face, seriously Kachan. Shine, It's the best word you could ever thought of. Izuku thinking this with a bit of disappointment of his bold choice of words to power up. Yet I cannot deny you became powerful, so much that I could say you're a dangerous enemy upon lesser demons of low to medium class. With the new records given in this test, we will calculate your scores and your high-ups in order to understand the most of yourselves as much as possible, Aizawa said tired as he showed the device he had on his hand, showing a distance calculator, marking 705.80 meters for the launch of Katsuki, getting everyone now surprised and shocked. Except two of course. Whoa, that's sick, 705.80. How is that even reachable? No way, that, poker face, is that really surprising at all? Both our young hunter and the girl thought not really surprised of such show, as let's just say that such event was just an everyday's breakfast. Whoa, this is going to be so much fun. But a certain pink-skinned girl exclaimed in glee, as our team could only observe with a poker face something obvious. It was at this moment that she knew, she fucked up. Fun huh? Then let's make it more funny. Aizawa grew a smile underneath his scarf as the students could only gulp down their breaths when, the one who gets the lowest score on the tests will be deemed useless and get expelled. Several students exclaimed disheartened and shocked when the teacher gave that announcement, clearly displeased of it. Turns at pink-skinned girl with a poker face, thanks for nothing, alien girl. Cheery too didn't mean to. Seems this day it's coming with a lot of shit to come. Our team could only think of this as the day will be awaited many things and also a close show of the quirks of the class. Yet also what he needs to know. But that is for another day. To be continued. I hope you guys enjoyed this video and make sure to like and subscribe to the channel. Now we will see you in the next video.